beach communities that will get walloped by the wind and rain. The storm will crash inland parties as it links up with another system moving in from the west. Here's what we know about Elsa right now. It's to blame for at least one death in the U.S. One person was killed by a falling tree in Jacksonville, Florida yesterday. More than 30,000 customers are without power in Georgia as well as South Carolina. PSE&G is preparing crews for Elsa's arrival in the Northeast tomorrow as it works to restore power to remaining customers from yesterday's storms and the storms before yesterday. North Carolina has activated its State Emergency Operations Center. So, Jen, still a lot going on with Elsa. This is day number 8 of Elsa, and we still got several more days to go.
Yeah, it's been quite a while since we've seen this many tropical storm/hurricane days in the month of July. So let's get into it right now and actually show you where Elsa is, the risk that we have at the moment, because there's a new tornado warning that was just issued. You can see how the shield of rain, too, has overtaken pretty much the entire eastern third of the state of North Carolina. Current look at the wind gusts. We've got winds right now gusting to 33 in Myrtle Beach. You saw how that wind was very breezy there behind Jackie Jarris. We're going to continue to watch the winds be about 30, gusting to 40, maybe over 50. Not going to expect a lot of change in those type of possible conditions through today. And a tornado watch, now a new one has just been issued, which extends until 3 o'clock this afternoon, including parts of I-95 and then all the way east to the coast, including near Wilmington, where not too far from there right now is where we have that latest tornado warning. So let's jump down into that. You can see it's in this band right here that we're watching. This is for parts of Brunswick and Columbus counties, including Holden Beach and Varnumton. This goes until 9:30 local time. It is radar indicated. So we'll look and see if there's any rotation within this. And that's, you know, when it comes to these types of tornadoes that you could see possibly spinning up in a tropical system, they're typically spin up quick. They can spin down quick as well, but things can evolve very quickly. And so you just need to be ready to seek shelter if you are under a warning. Again, taking a look at the velocity to see if we do have any tight rotation right in, let's see, looks like, well, it's a little tight area right there just to the north of 17 that we are looking at. And tracking this for you as it moves to the north, Doe Creek 859, Prosper 922, Northwest 930, East Arcadia at 933. That's outside of the warned area, but just so you know where it is tracking and the timing of how it is tracking as well. A lot of rain within that very heavy rainfall, in general gusty winds, and you can see the rain, how it's all lifting north here up across parts of central North Carolina, including the Triangle area. You know, we're not getting the worst of the weather right now, Raleigh. It's just rain, but things are definitely going to get worse as we see the circulation track up in this direction. Speaking of, you can see the circulation back here, not too far from Columbia in South Carolina. However, all of the active weather has been on the east side and now lifting up to the north side here, and that typically is where you see that risk when it comes to if there's going to be a spin of a tornado, it's going to be in that right front quadrant. We have some power outages already across parts of the low country, South Carolina, down through Savannah in Georgia, even Charlotte, a few power outages. And when this came through Myrtle Beach area, power outages because of that. Now, Elsa is roughing up the Myrtle Beach area this morning, and meteorologist Jackie Jarris is there. You know, Jackie, you had to seek shelter for the tornado warning. Once that warning ended, did you see a lot of people trying to sort of get out and see what happened?
Yes, absolutely. In fact, right next to me, we see a family over there coming out to check the conditions. You know, the beaches were desolate this morning. There was nobody out here during the worst of the conditions. You know, they really came in through the overnight. We had a window probably between about 3 a.m. and about 9 a.m. when the worst of the conditions moved through. And now we're seeing some brightness back in the sky. People are walking back out onto the beaches as well. But take a look at some of the video that we have from other coastal communities in the vicinity. You know, Hilton Head Island getting hit hard. There were a number of tornado warnings in effect there earlier today. Also in Charleston overnight, a number of tornado warnings were issued there. They did have some highways that were shut down for a while because trees got blown down into the highways and closing them down. They've been able to get out, clear that up. Things are over for folks there in Charleston. And as for here, things really kind of hit the fan between about 5 a.m. and about 8 a.m. That's when the worst of it came through. We had 2 main squalls, both of which showed some rotation in them, and our winds picked up to as much as 54 miles per hour. So that's pretty significant. Our winds are still gusty, so that's something we're going to have to deal with now for the rest of the afternoon. In fact, sometimes it's hard to hear you guys because the winds are gusting so strong from time to time. That makes challenges when you're trying to restore power to the 1,000+ people who are dealing with that right now. And it's a muggy day. It's a humid day, and we've got a lot of tourists here who really want to enjoy some good times. So as you can see, people are getting back out, but look at how angry the ocean still looks. We still have some really, really rough surf. We had high tide that came in just after 7 o'clock this morning, and no big issues. I mean, look at the sand. We still have a lot of beach left, no big signs of any erosion. So knock wood, it looks like overall coming through out of this one okay. But the big concern comes later on today. It's the hidden danger in the water. We're still going to have the southerly wind and somewhat of an onshore flow, and that pushes the water up and can help to create rip currents. So a rip current threat is going to stay high throughout the day. Folks need to stay out of the water. I know, Molly, you know, people spend a lot of money to come here and have a good time on vacation. Got the Grand Strand up the street down there. You've got the amusement park that you might be able to enjoy, but don't get in the water this afternoon. Just too dangerous to do that. Molly?
Definitely some good advice there. You just want to wait till this passes completely. By this weekend, we should have some better conditions in Myrtle Beach. Let's talk about Elsa right now and what's going on with Elsa, because look at all these storm reports just piling up since it made landfall yesterday, moving across the northern part of Florida, some tornado reports in Jacksonville, and then creeping all the way up the Georgia coast and into the Myrtle Beach area where Jackie Jarris is. The rainfall, too, has been significant, as well as the wind. Check out this wind gust. This is near Hilton Head Island in South Carolina. 81 miles per hour. Of course, when you get over the water, you have less friction, and so the wind tends to pick up a little bit than what you see over land, but still very impressive wind gusts there out of South Carolina, and also some wind gusts 70, 71 miles per hour near Key West, as well as Horseshoe Beach in Florida. You can look at the footprint of the rain, dropping quite a bit of rain over the Naples area, Fort Myers, stretching up into Tampa, across Jacksonville, and then look at the Georgia coast getting a lot of that rain, and all the way up into the South Carolina coast. Some of the rainfall amounts have been very impressive, including in Punta Gorda, where we've seen 11 inches of rain. And a lot of this is in the same area, so Punta Gorda, as well as Port Charlotte, Fort Myers, Sanibel, that's all part of the area that got just deep tropical moisture that trained over the same areas, and that's why the rainfall amounts were so impressive. Also holding on to 40-mile-per-hour sustained winds. We could see those increase a little bit today as this moves over North Carolina, so just be aware of that. But this will stay a tropical storm, and it's a strong tropical storm at that. And you can see the visible satellite, the sun coming up over Elsa this morning as it swirls over South Carolina and North Carolina. You are next. But Jen, before this moved into the Carolinas, this caused quite a bit of damage across Jacksonville with some tornadoes.
Yeah, we had a handful of them yesterday, actually, and they did cause some significant damage. Let's show you a view here. Also spawning storms along the first coast as a waterspout churns off the coast of Jacksonville. You can see that. You can see the spout in the distance dipping down into the water, winds gusting over 50 miles per hour in the area. And what happens often, actually, is you get these waterspouts turn tornadoes in a tropical system. So waterspout over water, once it moves over land, it's a tornado. It is that simple, but yes, it can be that damaging. So let's go ahead and take a look at those reports that we had from yesterday. Some surveys will be done. Already the Weather Service looked at the one up here in Georgia. This actually affected an RV park, and that one estimated right now to be an EF2 with a preliminary report out of that. There were some injuries out of that one as well. The Weather Service will be out for the other tornadoes today in the Jacksonville area. Now let's jump to the current radar. Again, we've been watching a pretty active overnight, and a lot of you lost a lot of sleep in Charleston and Myrtle Beach because we had those ongoing warnings through the overnight. Looking better weather-wise there at Myrtle Beach when it comes to those rain bands, but now they're lifting north, and we've been watching very closely what's happening for you this morning. Holden Beach, Wilmington, of course, you're in this as well, up towards East Arcadia, where we do have that line. It's these bands that are sort of right now embedded in a lot of rainfall, but that we'll have to watch for spin-ups along as we go through today. That's why the tornado watch is up, and we will see that until 3 o'clock this afternoon, watching for the risk of storms that will rotate. And what will happen is you might be under just a regular old thunderstorm, right? It's raining, it's thunder, it's lightning, it's gusty winds, but some rotation can develop. So things can evolve very rapidly across this area. Today, we want to warn you about that risk of tornadoes. There's a 3 on the Torcon. This does include parts of the I-95. I know there's a lot of folks traveling, so just be ready if you can avoid this area for travel. For the first part of today, it's moving along and it's moving north. In fact, by about 1, 2 o'clock this afternoon, you can see it's already out of the triangle area. We're left with a few showers, sort of with the trailing moisture here, but a lot of the active weather heading up through the mid-Atlantic by the time we get into later this afternoon and certainly into this evening. A lot of heavy rain came down fast, Molly, with this.
Especially in areas like Charleston, Jen. This is where we're looking at right now. You can see some of that water starting to pile up. It is a balmy 76 degrees in Charleston, but you're seeing a lot of water in places that it really shouldn't be. And that's why you have to be careful, not only in the Carolinas today, but as this continues to move up the I-95 corridor, we're going to see more problems with flooding. So let's talk about the Carolinas right now, where there's a flash flood watch in effect. We've got Raleigh, Greensboro, and then we continue up into Virginia, the Richmond area, and anywhere along I-95 today. As we go into tomorrow, you have to be careful. It's just going to be a messy, messy drive. Watch the cone here. So this is the forecast cone, but as always, impacts will be well outside that cone. Mainly to the east with Elsa. As this continues to track to the north and to the northeast, some of the coastal areas like the Hatteras Cape could see some very strong winds as we get into later this evening. We're talking about 40 to 50 mile per hour winds off the coast, and the rainfall on top of that. When you get all of the rain and then the stronger winds that come through, that's when you start to have trouble with trees falling, potentially on top of power lines as well. So you have to be prepared for those power outages coming through your area. Raleigh, here, about 3 to 5 inches of rain still to come today, so quite a bit of rain. It's going to be a soggy day in Raleigh. It's going to be a windy day, but this is moving out of the Carolinas slowly as we go throughout the day. So by this evening, the rain should start to taper down just a little bit. The winds will come down just a little bit. The good news with Elsa is that it is very quick moving, so you won't have to deal with it for very long. It's just going to be a messy day, and it's going to drop a lot of rain in a short amount of time. And you have to worry about the rip currents too, because with all of that onshore flow, all of that wind just blowing right into the coast, the rip currents, Jen, will be significant as we go over the next couple of days. That includes in the northeast as well.
It really does. This is going to be a beach concern today, again tomorrow too, and I want to show you how it plays out here, because another big concern I have for Elsa moving into the northeast is the rainfall and the amount that is coming in. Flash flood watches are up, and we've just had 2 days of rain and thunderstorms across this area. We're going to bring more in again today. This is before Elsa, right? So we're going to get showers and storms, likely bringing some heavy rainfall. And then overnight, we're going to be bringing up the moisture from Elsa. Watch as this comes in tomorrow morning. I mean, the New York City commute is going to be a mess. We've got, if they're traveling on Long Island or traveling up 95 into Connecticut, we've got a mess of rain and wind, gusty winds up over 30, 40 miles per hour coming in. And we'll have to watch for that isolated tornado risk as well. That will be here as we get through the afternoon in southern New England. Then moving up through Maine as we get into the overnight time frame. But then behind it, yes, a few more showers and storms coming through. It's just been a very busy time of weather for us in the northeast. I know a lot of you are already cleaning up a lot of tree damage, trying to get power back on after the storms that we've had 2 days in a row. And now we bring in what is coming from Elsa. The rainfall will be heavy, likely that we'll see flooding or flash flooding simply because the ground is saturated because of recent storms. And now we're going to bring the tropical rain, which will be very heavy at times. Now, just a reminder that you can watch the Weather Channel's live coverage of Elsa. We are streaming on Roku and Amazon Fire. So another option for you to find coverage if you're away from your TV. If not, stay right here with us and we'll be right back after this.
Around here, they say if you don't like the weather, just wait a minute.
I love to watch the waves after a storm. The storm can be long gone, but the waves just keep going.
Ask my history teacher where to go to college. He said, go where you like the weather. Best advice I've ever gotten.
Get into the out there. The Weather Channel.
warning from Elsa. What a wild ride it has been here over the last 5 or 6 hours, where we went through strong wind gusts over 50 miles per hour. We had a tornado warning that went through here. No damage reported. That's a little bit of good news, and just some really heavy downpours that came on through. The rain has stopped, though we can still feel a little bit of dampness from the sea that's getting sprayed on top of us here at the beach. And Myrtle Beach, such a popular tourist destination. This is a holiday week for a lot of folks, where folks, took the whole week off because of the holiday. Here's one family that did just that. We've got Katie and her daughter, Marissa, and her whole family that drove 3 hours from North Carolina. Mom, Katie, tell me, what has this been like for your family? Were you worried about the tropical storm?
A little bit. We've never been through, we live a little more inland, so we've never been through anything right on the beach. So I think we were more worried than like my husband and my son were, but it hasn't been. Luckily, I have a friend who lives in Wilmington. She kind of gave me, here's some local tips. This is what you do. This is what it'll be like.
All right, so Marissa, tell me, you told me you heard the tornado warning this morning.
So when we woke up, there was obviously the notification that the tornado came, and then we went in the bathroom, and yeah.
That was the right thing to do. That's the answer that I love to hear, Marissa. Good job. Were you scared?
Kind of, but not really.
But not really. So what do you guys think of the ocean and all the waves?
It's so cool.
Very cool. So I know it's tempting to get in there. Are you saying I want to go play in those waves today?
No.
No, that's also a very good answer, right? Absolutely not. Just too dangerous to be in the beach. Glad to know that your vacation did not get disrupted. I think that's been the case of a lot of folks. So thank you so much. Have a great and safe trip home. So that's the word here from Myrtle Beach. I think, not many cancellations. Folks just decided to ride it out, and they played it smart. You stay inside the building, you stay away from the outdoors and the threats, and once things improve, you get out in there and try and enjoy the rest of your beach. Now, we do think that the forecast the next couple of days are going to be looking a little bit better here, but we'll still have a high risk of rip currents. So folks really need to pay attention to those flags if they're thinking about trying to get a swim in. Best to stay at the pools. So Elsa continued to advance its way up towards the shore, now becoming a bigger problem in North Carolina and eventually working its way towards Maryland as we head towards the nighttime hours for tonight. So heavy rain, we had some gusty winds, still dealing with power outages here, Jen, but hopefully they'll get those back up, hopefully by noontime today. Yeah. Jen?
Oh, but that wind is relentless there, Jackie. And, great advice from that family, right? They're just, making the best of the situation and certainly heeding all the warnings. Now, for folks who are traveling, if you've got I-95 in your plans, we got to talk about this because it's going to be a stormy couple of days in the Northeast. Crews are still clearing debris and damage from severe storms this week, and more are on the way before Elsa arrives. Both Baltimore and New York City face flash flood watches today. And so let's talk about when the worst of the weather will come in, and then when will it finally clear out, right? That's as much of a question that you want answered as any. We have rainfall out there possible again today, actually, just because of scattered showers and storms not related to Elsa. But then here comes Elsa. So let's track that in. Few showers, again, unrelated as we get into the afternoon, but we get into that circulation by the time we get into the overnight, and that brings us some potential really heavy rainfall to parts of the mid-Atlantic, the Delmarva. We're going to watch through the morning hours. Latest modeling showing maybe the core of it is just off to our east, but still the winds are going to increase. So when it comes to air travel, we could have some delays there. Let's look at Philadelphia. Again today, like the last 2 days, we could be in and out of some scattered showers and storms. Moisture from Elsa, though, comes in as we get into overnight tonight. And so that's when we get to some of the heaviest of rainfall and most concerned about flooding and flash flooding. There's a lot of atmospheric moisture available to use once we get the Elsa circulation up in this direction. So the rainfall rates are going to be very heavy in this area. Certainly could be dealing with some flooding early in the morning. New York City, it's the morning commute tomorrow, which is going to be the worst one. We've got some scattered showers coming through today. This is tonight. This is, again, unrelated to Elsa. But these summer storms up here are going to pack a punch again for the third day in a row. And then look at this. Tomorrow morning, this is 6 o'clock. Now we bring in all of the Elsa moisture and energy and heavy rainfall. And flooding and flash flooding is going to be a possibility with the amount of rain we're expecting, the amount that this area can handle actually in a 3-hour window here, not much more than a couple of inches of rain. And we could get that. And then even as we see Elsa go by, we may see a few more thunderstorms popping as we get into the afternoon. So it is a busy couple of days up here. Boston and Providence and Hartford, same thing. Thunderstorms today, then Elsa comes in tomorrow afternoon, brings in the heavy rainfall, and it definitely could mean flooding or flash flooding.
Kleenex.
We are tracking Elsa up the East Coast, and here's what we know right now. Elsa is to blame for at least one death in the U.S. One person was killed by a falling tree in Jacksonville, Florida yesterday. More than 30,000 customers are without power in Georgia and South Carolina. PSE&G is preparing crews for Elsa's arrival in the Northeast tomorrow as it works to restore power to remaining customers from yesterday's thunderstorms. North Carolina has activated its State Emergency Operations Center. And thank you for trusting the Weather Channel to get through the midday hours here as we track Elsa and several other threats across America.
The first week of July, well, starting off very busy with the bang. And it's not just the fireworks. Elsa is leaving quite a bit of destruction in its trek up the eastern seaboard. Massive RVs were flipped over at Kings Bay base in Georgia yesterday. In Jacksonville, Florida, a possible tornado tore through, leaving a trail of destruction behind. And there are more reports of tree limbs and trees down in several states. But Jen, it doesn't stop here. We still have to talk about what's going to happen as this moves up and hits almost every major city along the I-95 corridor.
I mean, and Molly, exactly spot on. We are dealing with so many impacts, so many people dealing with when is it going to come in? When is it going to leave? How is it going to be affecting my next 2 days? So let's track it, starting with the wind gusts right now that we're feeling still in Charleston. Charleston, the worst of the weather is over. You got that overnight, but it's still gusty out there, close to 30 miles per hour. And we may see a scattered storm or two today. We're still sort of in that moisture zone. Myrtle Beach, still gusty, even though the worst of the weather is through. You've been watching Jackie Jarris's live shot this morning there, and we've had, just nonstop winds over 20, 30 miles per hour. Now let's look at this tornado watch. This is up until 3 o'clock this afternoon. It's in eastern North Carolina. It does include down here through the Wilmington area, where this morning we've been tracking one thunderstorm here that has been under a tornado warning. So tracking this particular band, it's this band that's embedded within all of the rain that has had a history of seeing some rotation in it based on radar estimates. We're going to be watching this lifting north into the Wilmington area. So heads up there. No warnings for you right now, but certainly something that we have to keep an eye on, right? Because we know that potential is there. In fact, watching that band right here that extends all the way up here into the central part of North Carolina, including over the I-95, this is going to keep lifting north today. And with it, we're going to be watching for that risk of some isolated spin-ups of tornadoes, very heavy rainfall, and that's going to be a big travel problem. And of course, the gusty winds that we have as well. The 8 o'clock advisory had Elsa at 45 miles to the west of Florence, South Carolina. So we're going to see this continue to track up here to the north and east. It's moving fast at 18 miles per hour and pushing out ahead of it all of the rain and wind. And of course, here, all the threats that come with that. Molly.
Well, Tropical Storm Elsa continues its destructive path up the East Coast this morning. Wilmington, North Carolina, you are under a tropical storm warning right now. We could see flooding, rain, and tropical storm force winds. There's also a possibility we could see some isolated tornadoes today, just like what we saw yesterday for parts of Florida as well as Georgia and South Carolina this morning. So please stay weather aware along the Carolinas, up the I-95 corridor. If you don't have to travel today, I wouldn't recommend it because it's going to be a sloppy day across portions of Charlotte up into the Raleigh area, and that extends all the way out into the South Carolina and North Carolina coast. Charlotte, you're actually behind on your rainfall for the year, and you might make that up and more today with Elsa passing through, dropping some very heavy rain. That continues until the early afternoon. You might see some wraparound showers on the backside of that for the evening, but a lot of the heavy rain is going to fall in the first half of the day and the first part of the afternoon. And then this continues right up I-95 into the Raleigh area. Now, Raleigh, you're about 3 inches above your average rainfall for this year, and you're going to see about 2 to 3 inches more just in the matter of a couple of hours. As this moves through, dropping some very tropical rainfall, it's going to be a mess to travel on I-40, I-95, I-85 over by Durham. It's just going to be not a great day to be outside. About 3 inches of rainfall right over the Raleigh area. That's through this evening alone. So you're talking about a month's worth of rainfall in about a day for you in portions of Raleigh. And the winds are going to be on top of that. We're going to see some very gusty winds, about 25 to even 30 miles per hour. That's what's happening in Raleigh and Charlotte. But let's go back down to Myrtle Beach, where we find meteorologist Jackie Jarris, who had a rough morning. Jackie, you had a tornado warning earlier this morning. You had several squalls move through, and it looks like right now you're just dealing with the wind and the last bit of Elsa.
Wow, the winds have really picked up just now all of a sudden with some of these gusts. You know, the worst of the squalls have all gone up towards our north, but now I'm finally actually kind of have to brace myself when taking steps forward from time to time. That's how strong the winds are. I just checked on the latest gusts. It was like 33 miles per hour at the airport, but I would say these might be a little bit stronger than that. And it is blowing some of the sand up at the beach, but despite that, they're trying to get back to business here already in Myrtle Beach. They're putting out the chairs. The winds will stay strong this afternoon and a high risk of rip currents. We'll be right back.
Don't settle.
Tropical storm Elsa not done yet here in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. Meteorologist Jackie Jarris reporting live here all morning. While the rain bands have moved on through, at least for now, we're still getting hit really hard with some of these strong gusty winds. The strongest gust we had earlier was in the squalls at 54 miles per hour, but we're still getting some good gusts, 30, maybe even as much as 40 miles per hour on the backside of the storm, and that's blowing some of the sand down the beach. But despite that, they're trying to get back to business already here in Myrtle Beach. Tourism is a big deal here, and we've got thousands of folks who have come to enjoy a holiday week at the beach. So they're trying to get the chairs up here. You can see they even put the umbrellas up, but notice over my shoulder here, you can see the red flags are flying. It's double red flags, which means the water is closed. So you can come out here onto the beach and enjoy the sand and go for a nice stroll or a walk, maybe tickle your toes, but you don't want to get into that water today. That water much too dangerous with a high risk of rip currents. So that's the concern this afternoon, because check it out, the sun is trying to come out. Yes, believe it or not, back behind me we see our first inkling of a little blue sky trying to begin to peek out. So the sun will come out this afternoon. Still perhaps a few squalls going forward, but much better conditions for the holiday travelers here over the next couple of days. But Jen and Molly, I do think rip currents, that's going to continue to be a risk at least through Friday. The weekend looks better for people to get back into the ocean. In the meantime, just hit the pool at the hotel, right?
Yeah, swim in the pool, then enjoy the beach when you can. Although that sand is brutal out there, Jackie. I mean, I don't know who's going to be sitting in those chairs other than Jackie.
Yeah, other than Jackie, right?
Right. All right, so let's talk about what's next with Elsa. We're going to track it up the coast. Obviously, a big risk we have is those spin-ups of tornadoes. We've already seen some damage from some in Florida and Georgia.
We saw several tornado warnings, and the thing with tropical systems, when they make landfall and they start to spin up, it happens very, very quickly. And usually they're wrapped in rain, so you're never going to see them coming either.
And you don't get a lot of warning, and not because you know they're not being warned on as quickly as they could be. It's just that you literally don't get that much notice when these kind of things happen, just because of the nature of the atmosphere. So we had a couple of tornadoes yesterday in Florida, also in Georgia. One of them in Georgia hit an RV park, and there were injuries. There were RVs flipped. So definitely a lot of cleanup to be happening there.
And if you're in one of those areas that is under a tornado watch today, or you find yourself in a tornado warning, and you're in an area where you are potentially in an RV, it's better just to get out rather than to stay there.
A sturdy structure. You know, camping too, right? There's a lot of sort of stressful places to be in when you have this kind of weather. In your car is another one. So if you have the opportunity to change your drive, I would, because this whole batch of rain is moving north. So a couple of hours difference here would make a much easier drive. Right now, I-95 is a mess with heavy rain.
And I don't know about you, but I hate driving in rain like that. You just can't see anything. Your windshield wipers can't keep up. It's just a mess.
Yeah, it's a stressful situation. Now, we do have this tornado watch. This goes until 3 o'clock this afternoon. This area in eastern North Carolina, we may see more spin-ups of tornadoes. You know, like yesterday, we don't anticipate a lot of them, but if the one that happens to affect you or your family, here we know how certainly heartbreaking that can be. So we want to make sure that you're aware of the situation, that we could have spin-ups today, and make sure you have a way to get warnings, and then know where you would go, too, if you're under a tornado warning.
So we've got a tour count of 3 for many areas. areas along the Carolina coast. Not a huge threat, but certainly not zero. And then we've got just this slop of moisture moving through. And the wind, of course, across the Carolina coast, especially into North Carolina, the Hatteras Cape, could see wind gusts 40, 50 miles per hour. It's always stronger when you get closer to the coast.
Right, they stick out there. So we do think some of those winds will be stronger. The center of circulation actually moving right up here, pretty much up the I-95, but it's actually well to the east of the center of the circulation that we see so much of the issues. And that's going to be the case again today. I mean, we're going to see that. I'd almost rather be under it or to the west of it as opposed to the east of it.
I'd rather be in the center of circulation rather than on the coast because this is an east-loaded side storm, and it's a lot of water, it's a lot of wind.
Yeah, in this case for sure. We're going to track this all the way up the coast. So let's talk about what's happening once we get up into the northeast. We've got cities like Providence, where we are going to be watching rainfall from Elsa come our way. Tropical storm Elsa does continue to barrel up the east coast and is taking aim at places in the northeast. Places like right here in Rhode Island, like Providence, you are under a tropical storm warning right now, and we could see tropical storm force winds by tomorrow whipping through. The other threat we're keeping an eye on is for potential dangerous flash flooding. And Molly, this area actually could be dealing with flash flooding by tomorrow afternoon.
It's not just Elsa in this area. We also have a front that's moving through. It's been plaguing the northeast for a couple of days now, and that's going to combine with Elsa. It's actually going to draw Elsa up into this area, and because of that, those flash flood watches just continue from D.C. all the way up to Bangor, Maine, and that's where we have Elsa. So you can track Elsa down here by the D.C. area. This is by Friday, right at midnight, and so we're talking about tonight into tomorrow morning and Friday, but this is also the leftover rain that's going to happen starting this afternoon, continuing well into the overnight hours. So by the time Elsa starts to move in, this ground is already super saturated. I'm really concerned about the flash flooding in the tri-state area. Traveling on I-95 is going to be a mess until we get to pretty much Saturday. This moves into Boston by Friday afternoon. That's 1 o'clock local time, and then eventually all the way up into Maine by the time we get to Saturday morning. By this weekend, we are finally done with Elsa in the U.S., but it's going to take a couple of days more here. We're talking about 1 to 2 inches of rain across most of this area, 2 to 3 inches, but we could see those isolated higher amounts, especially where we start to see those training of thunderstorms. It's always the case when you get repeated heavy rainfall. Stay with the Weather Channel. We continue covering Elsa as it moves up the northeast coast.
Don't settle. Start your day with Secret.
Well, welcome back. We're taking a live look at Kill Devil Hills, North Carolina, an area that is no stranger to tropical storms. This small beach town is under a tropical storm warning as Elsa passes through the Carolinas.
Yes, we've got that tropical rain coming down all across now the northern part of North Carolina. Really, almost all of the state is seeing it with the exception of the extreme western part. So rain, thunderstorms, the risk for flash flooding, the isolated risk for tornadoes. We have it all with Elsa as it continues to travel up here through the Carolinas.
I mean, you pretty much think about any threat with typical tropical systems, and you've got it with Elsa.
Yeah. And so, it is a tropical storm. It's on the move. You've got a large wind field with it, so winds are going to be very gusty. Even in places like Charleston and Myrtle Beach, where the worst of your weather is through, it's still really windy out there with winds over 20 or even close to 30 miles per hour.
So I love this graphic because you have the cone here. So this is the cone and the forecast cone, but you can see that those impacts and the rain especially and the wind extends well outside of the center, especially on the eastern side. So the Carolina coast, you got to be careful today. North Carolina coast. On top of that, the rainfall is going to be torrential.
Yes, and that's going to be a hazard. Driving in the rain causes accidents. We see it all the time. And so we want to make sure that you're safe. If you can avoid travel for a couple of hours, it'll get better by later on this afternoon across this area. Mention those winds. 35 to 40 mile per hour winds are still in place for us across eastern South Carolina, and then certainly North Carolina getting worse before it gets better.
Well, and you saw what was happening with Jackie Jarris in Myrtle Beach, where even though Elsa is past, those winds really pick up afterwards, and you kind of get all of that wind drawing right into the coast.
Even Norfolk and the Virginia Beach area, you're going to be dealing with some winds gusting 30, 40, even close to 50 miles per hour as we get later into the afternoon and early evening. The other risk is going to be on the beaches, and so now that the weather might be improving, I'll put that in quotes slightly, we are still watching for the concern of rip currents out here.
Yeah, and it's not going to be the best beach day in Myrtle Beach and areas of South and North Carolina.
All right, so let's go to Texas, where we also have very serious situation with torrential downpours causing serious problems along the Texas Gulf Coast. South Padre Island under a flash flood watch until tomorrow night.
And nearby, McAllen Miller International Airport recorded a record-breaking 4.63 inches of rain there yesterday. With rain in the forecast through Saturday, the flooding is only going to get worse. So let's talk about what's going on in Texas, because we've got several stats we can rattle off for you. And when we start to rattle off these impressive stats, you know it's a bad situation in Texas. Right off Corpus Christi's Padre Island, about 18 inches of rain in just the past 3 days. So we're talking about several months worth of rain in just a matter of days. Corpus Christi this morning, the airport picked up more than their monthly total that they typically see in July in just a matter of a couple of hours. Where you see those dark red colors, those pink colors moving into Corpus Christi and just south of Corpus Christi, that's where we're talking about 8 to 12 inches of rain in just 48 hours. And here's the rain still to come. We've got a deep plume of tropical moisture that's pushing right up into the Texas coast. Just south of Houston, so the Victoria area, we could see another 5 to 8 inches of rain, and we've got a lot of available moisture in place. This is the atmospheric moisture, so what's available in the atmosphere for some of these storms to tap into. And where you see those reds and those pink colors, that is some extremely moist air. In fact, almost off the charts as far as that moisture that's available. And because of that, we are very likely to see flooding from Freeport, Victoria, all the way down to Corpus Christi. The city of Rockport yesterday, as well as Fulton, was under a flash flood emergency. I wouldn't be surprised if we see another one of those today in some of the same areas, because look at this, it is still raining. We've got flash flood warnings all around the city of Corpus Christi. And look at this, this is a fetch of tropical moisture moving right into the same areas. When it comes over the Gulf of Mexico, that's going to push a lot of moisture in. So it feels tropical outside likely, and this is some very tropical rain. So just be very careful in Texas today. If you don't have to travel, I don't recommend getting out on the roadways. Well, let's check out this incredible moment when a bolt of lightning struck the One World Trade Center. This was captured by our viewer as intense storms brought down trees as well as power lines across the Northeast. And more than 30,000 people are still waiting for their electricity to be restored in New York State, and thousands more are still in the dark in areas like Pennsylvania. So incredible lightning, of course, very dangerous in the summertime. Always have to watch out for that lightning threat. In the Northeast, yes, you have more storms today, but we are going to see Elsa as well over the next 2 days. And you can actually, there's a lot going on here on this water vapor imagery. Here's our front. It's passing right through Chicago as well as St. Louis. It's going to be that front that disturbs your weather today, but also allows Elsa to lift up to the north. And when that happens, it's going to combine with that moisture, and we're going to see areas that see torrential, heavy rainfall that's going to fall in just a matter of a couple of hours. In fact, it's still raining, and quite the storm over Indianapolis right now. A lot of lightning to start off your Thursday morning up into the areas like Michigan as well as Pennsylvania. A lot of Pennsylvania still seeing rain right now. That was after a wild evening of storms. We've got some storms moving up into the Albany area, West Virginia, also seeing some light rain right now. But as we go through this, look at what happens throughout the day. A lot of energy to tap into. And of course, here comes Elsa right up through the DC area by the time we get to tomorrow. And it's going to be soaking rain, gusty winds. We have the risk for isolated tornadoes as well. And then we've got all of those storms moving across the tri-state area up into New York, as well as into Hartford, where we could see some flash flooding and potentially, yes, those gusty winds. Have to watch out for power outages. Just be prepared. We'll keep you prepared right here on the Weather Channel.
Yeah, so I feel like Jim Cantori right now, walking around out here in a tropical storm. Elsa has arrived. As you can see, we have got a little bit of flooding issues. Yeah, so I feel like Jim Cantori right now.
Oh, we got a report there from Darien, Georgia. More people will be saying something just like that as Elsa crashes summer plans on the East Coast. The second landfalling tropical system of the year has made a mess in Florida and Georgia, and now has its sights set on the early part of your weekend.
And we are tracking storm alerts from one end of the I-95 corridor to the other until 1 o'clock today. Thank you for staying in tune so you can stay informed. I'm meteorologist Jen Carfagno.
And I'm meteorologist Molly McCullum. Summer storms, major flooding, and of course, Elsa is making a messy Thursday as you prepare for the weekend.
All right, so from the Tar Heel State to Hampton Roads up to Beantown, Elsa will bring a host of problems as we round out this first full week of July.
And it's not just those beach communities that will get walloped by the wind and the rain. This storm will crash inland parties as it links up up with another system moving in from the west. The center of Elsa is bringing that torrential rain to the Carolinas. The power outage situation is improving in Georgia and South Carolina. Just over 17,000 customers are offline at this hour. Tropical storm warnings extend north into parts of the mid-Atlantic and New England. PSE&G is preparing crews for Elsa's arrival tomorrow as it works to restore power to remaining customers from yesterday's thunderstorms. So, Jen, it's not just Elsa when it comes to the Northeast. We've had 2 days of thunderstorms that have done some damage in the Northeast, and then here comes Elsa.
And the winds from those storms were stronger than what you're going to feel from this tropical system. The thing with the tropical system is the winds are just nonstop, and we've got that risk of tornadoes spinning up, plus the heavy rainfall. So those three threats are with us. Here's a look at where that tropical rain is right now, pretty much covering the entire eastern part, or eastern 2/3 of the state of North Carolina. South Carolina looking better at the moment in terms of the rainfall, but we still have some gusty winds across the area. Look at Charleston gusting to 30, Myrtle Beach gusting to 38 miles per hour. But watching Jackie Jarris this morning there in Myrtle Beach and seeing how the winds actually have been increasing a little bit even now after all of that rain has pushed through. There is a tornado watch, and this is in effect until 3 o'clock this afternoon. This includes around Wilmington, Kinston, Morehead City, parts of the Outer Banks were under that as well. It does not include Raleigh and the Triangle area. However, that's just off to your east where we do have that concern. Watching into these outer bands, that's where you see the risk of spin-outs happening. And right now, I don't see any active tornado warnings. However, this is something that, excuse me, that could change very rapidly and that we'll have to keep an eye on. The rainfall extends all the way back across parts of the western part of the state, including in Charlotte and Greensboro. It's much lighter out here, and you're actually a little closer to the circulation center, but the bulk of the weather has been so far removed from the center and so well off to the east, and that's where we're really getting some of the steadiest and heaviest rainfall. So on the move right now, we're watching this rain. We do have some power outages. We've seen that around the Charlotte area, but also especially from Charleston, where what a mess of an overnight that we had there with numerous tornado warnings. Speaking of tornado warnings, we had one earlier in the Myrtle Beach area, and that's where we find our meteorologist, Jackie Jarris. Jackie, just saw your winds actually increase even more. So what's it like out there?
It's not the worst out here right now, but it's still not the best. In fact, I just had to turn around and change direction, Molly, because I lost my hat and I couldn't even hear you because the winds were gusting that strong. So now I've got the wind in my back. We're still getting gusts 35 to 40 miles per hour. But check it out. Do you see that? We've got a couple of breaks in the clouds, so a little bit of blue skies. But if you look down the beach the other direction, you can see the pier down here, but also the much darker skies. So that is Elsa working her way northward out of South Carolina and into North Carolina, where we'll continue to cause all kinds of issues with heavy rain, still that tornado threat, along with the gusty winds. So the winds continue to be an issue. It's blowing the sand up the beach right now, and it's keeping the ocean really, really rough. We've got double red flags flying here in Myrtle Beach, meaning the water is closed. Come on out here and have a good time. Look at these folks. They're having a great time. They're back out after staying inside all morning long because of our extreme weather. We had 54-mile-per-hour wind gusts. We had a tornado warning. In fact, our crew had to seek shelter during that tornado warning to keep ourselves safe. And we had a lot of lightning. You know, tropical storms have a lot more lightning in them than hurricanes do. And lightning is a danger. It is a threat. It can be deadly. So take that very seriously. Now, the concern going forward here in Myrtle Beach is that things are going to get better, which sounds like a good thing, but when the sunshine comes out and folks want to get out there and hit back into that water, that's a no-go because the rip current risk continue to stay very, very high. And that's not just going to be today. It's likely going to be an issue at least the next 2 days. So whenever you have that ocean churning up in a tropical system, you know, this thing's going to end up getting back offshore eventually into the mid-Atlantic, and those waves can propagate. So we'll still have to watch for that even as we head into the weekend with some spotty showers and thunderstorms. But in the meantime, the worst is over with. We still have a few issues But, you know, play it smart, and we're going to be okay here in Myrtle Beach. And Molly, the good news is also that we had at one point over 2,000 people without power. That has now been restored to almost each and every person. I think there's like 39 people still without power. Back to you.
Well, the situation certainly improving in Myrtle Beach. Thank you, Jackie. And the wind really whipping around Jackie there out in Myrtle Beach. But we do see Elsa lifting out of Myrtle Beach and into North Carolina now. But behind that, a mess of local storm reports. Just look how many as Elsa makes landfall just around the Cedar Key area, all the way through Jacksonville, where there was a reported tornado or several reported tornadoes, and then continuing up into South Carolina across Charleston and into Myrtle Beach. Some of the wind gusts have been very impressive, and that does include near the Hilton Head Island area, 81-mile-per-hour wind gusts. That's one of the strongest that we've seen so far. 71 miles per hour at Horseshoe Beach, and the Key West area picked up 70 miles per hour, and that was a really strong gust as Elsa pushed past Key West and continued up the Gulf Coast of Florida. The footprint of rain has been pretty impressive from Key West all the way through, especially Naples, Fort Myers. That area saw just a deluge of rain over and over and over again. Yesterday, Tampa saw quite a bit of rain, and that rainfall extends 3 to 5 inches widespread across the Georgia coast up into the Carolinas. The most impressive rainfall total we've seen so far is in the Punta Gorda area, where we've seen over 11 inches of rain. It's a couple months worth in a short amount of time. And we actually set a daily rainfall record in Gainesville, Florida, with over 3 inches of rain. Right now, with Elsa, the sustained winds at about 40 miles per hour. Here's the deal. We could see that become a little bit stronger as this moves along the I-95 corridor. We will see the winds pick up maybe to about 45 miles per hour as this lifts off to the north and to the northeast. So just be prepared as Elsa comes in your direction. A lot of wind, a lot of rain, and potentially some isolated spin-ups as well. That's what we saw in Jacksonville yesterday, a funnel cloud moving through as Elsa carved a path through Florida on Wednesday. Widespread damage was reported, including private property as well as downed power lines and trees. There was one fatality, unfortunately, with these storms. The National Weather Service in Jacksonville is out surveying the damage today. Jen, I think these tornadoes with tropical systems are some of the scariest because just how quickly they spin up.
Exactly. They spin up quickly. There's always a lot of rain, so you can't always see it. And so you just need to seek shelter if you are under those tornado warnings. I want to show you where actually we had a couple of tornadoes spin up yesterday. There were 2 reports in Georgia, 3 actually in Florida. Again, the Weather Service is going to be out to survey these, as Molly mentioned. But one of them already preliminary rating of EF2, the one that hit the RV park in Georgia. And there were some injuries that came out of that, unfortunately. Now, here's where the rain is right now. And we are watching it all continue to lift north through North Carolina. It is a rainy day for us across the I-95, right across the entire state of North Carolina. Now, at the moment, been watching these bands, and it's these 2, this one and then this other one that extends down just to Little River, that I've been watching very closely for any spin-ups here. Haven't seen anything yet. The Weather Service obviously watching it extremely closely. They'll be the ones that would issue any warning should we need them. And there is a tornado watch across this zone for that threat of tornadoes happening. That goes until 3 o'clock this afternoon, and that is possible all the way up into southeast Virginia. So be ready later today. Things are going to change up around Norfolk and Virginia Beach and the Hampton Roads area, and I would imagine that we will get under a tornado watch once we get into the later hours today. Watch means that conditions are possible for tornadoes. When there's a warning, it means that one has either been spotted or it's been recognized on Doppler radar, and that's when a warning, you need to seek shelter. All right, so quick look at that forecast. Going forward, we're in the rain, heavy at times Raleigh right through about mid-afternoon. After that, though, it does improve. Now, tornadoes are one of the several dangers that hurricanes, tropical storms, and their remnants can produce as they move inland. Meteorologist Mike Bettis explains how it happens.
Hurricanes have many of the ingredients needed to form tornadoes, including thunderstorms, as well as wind shear, which is simply a change in wind speed and direction with height. And lastly, warm, moist air. And certain areas are more prone to this double trouble. The front right quadrant of the hurricane is fertile ground for these tornadoes because that's where we find the strongest winds. So let me show you how this all happens. When a hurricane makes landfall, the friction near the ground slows the winds, while above, the winds remain high. And this creates a rolling motion in the atmosphere. Now remember our other ingredient, it's warm, moist air. And it's buoyant, meaning it wants to rise. And that rising air now tilts our rolling motion vertically, creating a tornado. And these tornadoes can be destructive, most producing EF0 to EF2 damage with winds up to 135 miles per hour. But predicting exactly where a tornado will form within a hurricane can be very, very difficult because most tornadoes form within small storm cells that may not appear dangerous on radar. So in addition to all the other threats from a hurricane, tornadoes just one more reason to evacuate when ordered to.
And we are watching for the threat of tornadoes very, very closely today. But on top of that, in the Carolinas, on top of the tornado threat, on top of the wind threat, we also have to talk about the water. Of course, with tropical systems, we have a flash flood watch from Fayetteville, Raleigh, Greensboro, all the way up into Virginia. And that extends into Baltimore and even Ocean City, Maryland, where we are expecting quite a bit of rain today as Elsa continues its track up the I-95 corridor. This is the forecast cone. So this is what you see typically with tropical systems, but what you always have to remember is that is the center of Elsa, and you will see impacts well outside of the center, especially on the eastern side. So a lot of rain, a lot of wind in Wilmington, the Hatteras Cape, Nags Head, North Carolina. Virginia Beach, Norfolk is going to see a lot of rain, a lot of wind today, and we could see rainfall amounts of maybe a couple of inches, topping 5 inches in some areas, and that's going to be about a month or two worth of rain in just a single day, so 24 hours. That's why we're concerned about flash flooding, and many of these areas, especially the Raleigh city area, Raleigh-Durham, that you could see 3 to 5 inches of rain. On top of that, the wind gusting at times 30, 35 miles per hour. When that falls on super saturated soil, you get the wind that comes through, and that will knock down trees, potentially on top of power lines. Then you start to have power outages on top of that. And it will be the wind remaining after this that's going to allow for some delays in repairing some of those power lines. And certainly, so it's going to be kind of a rough day in the Carolinas, and that will extend up into Virginia and eventually up into the Northeast and up into the Atlantic City area, where they are on alert for Elsa as well, as the storm takes aim at the Northeast. Heavy rain, wind, and flooding on tap for Atlantic City and Jersey Shore. A tropical storm warning is in effect, and a flash flood watch goes into effect tomorrow evening. This is several days, Jen, of some storms, and now we have Elsa.
We do. It has been rough up here in the Northeast. It's been hot. Every day we get thunderstorms. Now we've got a tropical storm coming our way. There is a tropical storm warning that is up, and the flash flood watch is up, expecting some really heavy rainfall coming in and high rates. When you have a high rate of rain, meaning a lot happens in the course of an hour, that's when you run into the biggest risk of flash flooding. Plus, we start the situation with saturated ground. 2 days of storms already. There'll be another one today. Then this is overnight tonight. So we start at midnight. You see all the moisture coming up from Elsa, heading up through New York City and up towards southern New England. That's the zone I'm really most concerned about when it comes to flooding or flash flooding, simply because look at this moisture coming in. And this is an area that can only handle 2 or 3 inches of rain in a 3-hour period before flash flooding would happen. And so this is tomorrow morning. Look at this, 8 o'clock in the morning, a mess of a commute. If you have the option to still work at home, do it tomorrow, because we have all of this rain that's just going to make the morning rush a mess here. And then right through the afternoon into southern New England, we've got a mess of rain coming in here as well. So this is really going to affect not just road travel, but also air travel into the afternoon across the Northeast, especially airports like in Boston or in Manchester in New Hampshire. And then a couple more thunderstorms do start popping in later in the day. All right, now we have to go to Texas, Molly. This is a huge flooding story.
Yeah, Florida and the Southeast, not the only spots seeing some flooding as storms crank across the Gulf Coast. The other side of the Gulf Coast in Texas, kicking up high water across parts of Texas, including in Rockport, where those vehicles splashing through the streets. It's never a good idea to do this, to drive through those flooded waters, because you never know how deep the water is. Just south in Corpus Christi, they had 2 months of 2 July months worth of rain in just the last 12 hours. And the Corpus Christi airport this morning picked up over 4.5 inches of rain just since 6 a.m. And that's, again, several months worth in a very small amount of time. That's why we're so concerned about the flash flooding in this area. It's been several days now that we've seen this repeated heavy rainfall over the same areas. This is the past 48 hours where you see those reds as well as those pinks. That is 8 to 12 inches of rain in 48 hours. And that's why we are expecting some flash flood watches and some warnings in this area today. We might even see another flash flood emergency like what we saw in Rockport yesterday. You have to be prepared and watch out. And if that water starts to rise in your area, have a plan of what you're going to do. An additional 5 to 8 inches of rain expected towards the Victoria area, and this is the atmospheric moisture. So this is the precipitable water, basically the water available in the atmosphere for some of these storms to tap into. Where you see those deep reds and pinks, that is a lot of moisture, tropical moisture. So more rain will fall in Texas today. Keep it right here on the Weather Channel.
What happens?
Evacuate immediately.
Oh no. Go, go! Oh.
New video just into the Weather Channel from Charleston, South Carolina. Charleston got hit hard through the overnight hours with torrential downpours, blinding rain. More than 3.5 inches fell here, leading to rising water and some flash flooding. There have been issues across town as a result of that through the early morning hours, and also some tree damage. The winds were gusting as much as 40 miles per hour in Charleston. It did block a few roads, but conditions there dramatically improving right now. Coming to you live from Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, I'm meteorologist Jackie Jarris. So glad you could join us this morning for a special coverage of Tropical Storm Elsa. I'm here in Myrtle Beach, where the worst also came through in the early morning hours, but boy, you can see it is still really gusty. In fact, the sand kind of blowing down the beach here from these gusts that are ranging between 30 and 40 miles per hour still. All the squalls have moved up towards our north, and that's the good news, and we'll watch for improving conditions here for the rest of the day. But if you know anything about the Grand Strand here in Myrtle Beach, this is a tourist town. Thousands of people flock here from all across the country in the summer months to enjoy the beautiful beaches here. And of course, we had 4th of July over the weekend. This is a holiday week for a lot of folks, just like the Cajal family here from Ohio. And guys, you guys came a couple of days ago. Were you worried, first of all, to come because of the tropical storm?
We were at first, but we were blessed and we prayed on it and thought about it a little bit, and we were very excited to go ahead and come here. The hospitality in Myrtle Beach and the locals have been wonderful. Being on the beach here, even though the storm is in here, hasn't stopped us at all from enjoying our vacation. We've had to do a little bit of a detour than what we would expected to do today, but it hasn't put a damper on us at all. And I thank everyone here for keeping us safe and watching over us. And I wish everybody here on Myrtle Beach and all the tourists a great, wonderful rest of their vacation while they're here.
So tell us a little bit about what happened this morning. I know you guys all ended up going into the bathroom, yeah?
Yeah, we did. Yeah, we definitely did.
So did you wake up early? Did you hear things? Or tell me about that experience.
We kind of just woke up to the thunder, and we all heard the tornado warning on our phones, so we went into the bathroom and stayed there for a while.
All right, that's what I like to hear. You guys took shelter and played it safe. Dad, are you guys tempted to get out back into the water today, or what are your plans?
Probably tomorrow.
Probably tomorrow. That's probably a good idea. You guys can see how rough the waves are. So Tropical Storm Elsa not putting a damper on your guys' vacation, right?
No, not at all.
When are you heading back home?
We don't head back home until Sunday morning.
Oh, perfect. So you guys have several days to still deal with some nice weather
Yes.
returning to Myrtle Beach. Cajal family, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Have a great rest of the vacation. So they heard it. You know, we talked with the mayor earlier this morning. Mayor says that there have been very few cancellations. I was able to get my hotel room, though, because of a cancellation. So a couple of people said, yeah, we're going to forget it. But for the most part, we are getting back to business as usual. The chairs are already set back up here. There's lots of people back out on the beach trying to have a good time. Now, the biggest concern going forward for the rest of the afternoon are the water conditions, and that's that the winds are still going to push that water on shore, bringing in a high risk of rip currents. So folks don't want to get in the water today. In fact, we do think the rips will be high tomorrow and the day after as well. So make sure you pay attention to the flags. And you can see the flags behind me that are flying. There's the double red flag indicating that the beach is closed today. And I learned something new today, Molly. I thought I knew all of my flags, but do you see the yellow flag with the black circle in it? Apparently that means no surfing, and I know it's tempting because you don't get big waves here every day, but they don't want you to get out there and surf today either. Molly?
Yeah, I didn't know that either, so that's a good flag to add to your register of flags when you go to the beach. Things to look out for, especially if you're into surfing. It's not going to be great surfing weather along anywhere in the East Coast for the next couple of days because that as Elsa starts to move up the coast, it's going to churn up all of that surf, and you've got those onshore winds that will allow for some really strong rip currents. We've got a lot going on in the Northeast. Of course, we're awaiting Elsa's arrival, but also look at this, moving past Chicago all the way down to St. Louis. That is our front that we're watching for today that will continue to spark a few showers and thunderstorms already this morning, raining in portions of Indianapolis. We've got quite a bit of lightning right now, quite the thunderstorm moving through to wake you up this morning. And also we've got some rain moving across the tri-state area up into Albany, New York, and some light scattered rain across Charleston and Charleston, West Virginia. And that area, as we get into the afternoon, this will tap into, of course, the heat of the day. It's been very, very hot in the Northeast. We've had a few heat advisories with those heat indexes in the 90s, as well as the triple digits. That's just fuel for these storms this afternoon right along that front. And then, of course, here comes Elsa riding right up the I-95 corridor. It will be messy, messy, messy across the I-95 corridor. So if you do not have to travel today or tomorrow, I wouldn't recommend it. You can stay right here on the Weather Channel as we continue to track Elsa.
Counting your veggies can be.
Welcome back. We are tracking Elsa up the East Coast, and here's what we know right now. Elsa is to blame for at least one death in the U.S. One person was killed by a falling tree in Jacksonville, Florida yesterday. Power outages are growing. More than 23,000 customers are without power in Georgia, South Carolina, and North Carolina. PSE&G is preparing crews for Elsa's arrival in the Northeast tomorrow as it continues to try to restore power to remaining customers from yesterday's thunderstorms. And North Carolina has activated its State Emergency Operations Center.
And look at that sky in Wilmington. It is dark. Thank you for trusting the Weather Channel to get you through all the midday hours as we track Elsa and several other threats across America.
The first week of July, it has been, it's been busy. And it's starting off with a bang. And it's not just with the fireworks from the 4th of July. Elsa is leaving quite a bit of destruction in its trek up the eastern seaboard. Massive RVs were flipped over at Kings Bay base in Georgia yesterday. This is why an RV is never a great place to be during a storm, especially a tornado. At Jacksonville, Florida, a possible tornado tore through, leaving a trail of destruction behind, and there were reports of trees and limbs down in several states. So Elsa, Jen, it's now day number 8 of Elsa being a named storm, and we've at least got 2 more.
Exactly. I mean, and this is the entire East Coast, right? We started in Florida yesterday, and now we're going to bring it all the way up to the Northeast tomorrow. Let me show you where it is right now and what we are dealing with. You saw how dark that sky was in Wilmington. So we're in the rain. The tropical rain is coming down across the entire eastern 2/3 of the state of North Carolina, and it's going to be lifting up here into the Carolinas. Watching for these bands, and you can see how they extend out over the water with the lightning. These outer bands are the ones that you'll have to watch for that potential of spin-ups coming in of tornadoes. The other thing, though, it's just windy. It's just plain old windy out there with gusts close to 40 in Myrtle Beach. Beach. We're gusting mid-20s there in Wilmington and even in Charleston, where your skies are clearing. You see blue out there, right? But we're still gusty up to close to 30 miles per hour. The tornado watch is up. This goes until 3 o'clock local time. And the thing to know about tornadoes and tropical systems is they can happen fast. So make sure that if you're in this watch area, it's a good indication that the possibility is there. Make sure you're ready. If you get a warning, know where you would go. Let's take a closer look at the radar in Wilmington. We're in a very steady rainfall right out here. Looking up towards Sandy Field, thunder and lightning coming down, watching this little line as it curves up to the north and arcs up to the north too. I mean, all roads are wet and the rain has been very persistent. Some of the heaviest rainfall rates right now, Pinehurst, golfers, obviously you're not golfing today, and this is all lifting north towards the triangle, so it's going to get worse before it gets better in Raleigh and in Durham. Now, we also have some of those extreme northern bands starting to make their way up here, up into Virginia, and so in the next 2 hours or so, get ready in Norfolk and the Hampton Roads area, Virginia Beach. We've got rain and storms coming your way from Elsa, and of course that rain on the move as we get through the overnight, heading all the way up the East Coast to the Northeast, Molly.
Thanks, Jen. It's not just the Carolina coast getting hammered by Elsa spinning up the East Coast. We also have to talk about Charlotte. Look at that. It looks gross in Charlotte right now, but things are starting to improve just a little bit. It's 74 very tropical degrees. Let's talk about the timing for Charlotte because, yes, things are improving, but we still have some rain to go in the Charlotte area. Now, before today, you were a little bit below on your average rainfall for the entire year, about 1.5 inches. You likely made that up today and maybe even a little bit more in spots. We could have some wraparound showers on the backside of this as we go throughout the evening time frame, but you will have a dry period coming up, at least for the first part of the afternoon. You just heard Jen talking about this. It is going to get worse before it gets better in the Raleigh-Durham area. So I-95, I-40, anywhere along I-85, it is going to be sloppy out on the roadways. If you have to be out, just take it extra slow. We've also got some strong wind gusts moving into Raleigh, as well as some of that rain. At times, the wind being so strong, it could just blow sideways for many of us. And then we get into the later part of the evening. That's when it starts to improve as Elsa lifts off to the northeast. Anywhere from 2 to 3 inches of rain across the Raleigh area. And of course, the wind at times 30 to 35 miles per hour. We could even see some isolated, stronger gusts. But talk about where it's windy. Let's go out to meteorologist Jackie Jarris, who is in Myrtle Beach right now. And Jackie, it seems like the wind has gotten stronger, even though Elsa is past to your north now.
As you just say that, we've been really experiencing some strong gusts. Last check at the airport, 38 miles per hour. That's the gust. So, you know, occasionally we'll get these strong gusts that kind of throw you off your feet a little bit, and certainly blowing the wind on the sand. But look at this. These guys are trying to play a little football despite the winds. Works out not every time. But hey, why not? Now that the main threat is over here in Myrtle Beach. So the wind will continue to be an issue over the next couple of hours, but will gradually be lightening up, improving into the afternoon. But the other big issue with the wind is creating some really wicked waves. So don't get out in the water. A lot of folks here on vacation trying to have a good time, and they can get out here on the beach. We'll have continuing live coverage and watch us streaming on Roku. Coming to you live from Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. I'm meteorologist Jackie Jarris. Boy, we had a wild ride this morning. Conditions have improved a lot, but it's still not exactly a picnic at the beach right now. We've got strong gusty winds around 38 plus miles per hour at times. That's really got the flag sticking out there, but it's also taking the sand and pushing it down the beach, and you can really feel the sting on your legs, I'll tell you, when that sand gets blowing. So that's going to be one of the concerns going forward. Now, earlier this morning, the worst of the conditions really came in between about 3 a.m. and about 9 a.m. We had a tornado warning in here. Our crew had to take shelter and get inside the building as that was just a little too close for comfort. We had a lot of lightning, too. That's something to think about with tropical storms. They have a lot more lightning than hurricanes do. Now, the beach still looking pretty good, quite honestly. Overall, you can see the water has come up. A lot of the foam has developed. So you get those winds kind of pushing the waves, and it creates this kind of ugly foam that's kind of a little bit fun to play in. No big erosion issues, so that's the good news. And high tide came in here around 7:07 this morning, and that wasn't really a big problem either. But The problem is what's in the water still going forward as we have this strong onshore push, more of a south-southeasterly wind coming in, and that means our risk of rip currents remains high. This is a tourism town. Look at all the people who are out here trying to have a good time here. Of course, a lot of people spend a lot of money to come on down to the beach, so they want to get out and have fun. So Molly and Jen, the pool is where it's at the next 2 days because you don't want to do much more than tickle your toes in this water the next few.
Jackie Jarris here, calling for a pool party today here, and great advice to do so. You know, we've got the wind and waves from tropical storms like Elsa. That's one cause of beach erosion along the coast.
Meteorologist Alex Wilson shows us the scope of the problem and the factors behind it.
Ever head to the beach only to find a sand cliff where the beach used to be? It's actually a natural process called erosion, which can be found in coastal areas all around the U.S. It happens when the energy of moving water, like waves, pulls sand away from the shore and then deposits it in other places, like deeper water or another coastal area. This can occur gradually, but when the winds and waves kick up, erosion can be quick and dramatic, leaving behind lower and shorter beaches, or sometimes no coastline at all.
There were actually woods at one time. They came and they did hunting. There was lots of land before this occurred. You know, nature goes where it wants to go.
Shorelines that get tropical storms are more at risk than others because of a combination of high tide storm surge mixed with strong waves. But nature's protector, the sand dunes, help separate the lower beach from higher ground. The roots of the dune grasses help anchor the sand in place and keep water from going too far inland. Unfortunately, when humans build along the coast, it can damage those dunes and make erosion worse. And in turn, erosion can make it worse for humans. According to NOAA's U.S. Climate Resilience Toolkit, $500 million worth of coastal property is lost or damaged due to erosion every year. To mitigate that, the federal government spends an average of $150 million each year on beach nourishment and other control measures to try to protect the disappearing coastline. While beach erosion is mostly a natural process that's been happening for ages, human activity is speeding it up, which can cause flooding, damage to roads, and sometimes make entire buildings collapse into the ocean.
Well, Elsa continues to barrel up the East Coast and is taking aim at places in the Northeast like this one, Providence, Rhode Island, where it looks like those skies already gray this morning. We could see tropical storm force winds whipping up by tomorrow. The other threat that we are keeping an eye on is the potential for dangerous flash flooding. Here's why. Of course, we have the tropical rain moving in with Elsa, but also you've seen days and days of thunderstorms now dropping heavy rain, gusty winds. Also, there's been some power outages across the Northeast. So anything that falls on top of this from Elsa is really going to be insult to injury. We've got flash flood watches out from Washington, D.C., across Atlantic City, Philly, New York, Trenton, Hartford, Boston, Portland, all the way up to Bangor, Maine. So you think of any big city along the I-95 corridor, you will feel impacts from Elsa, and this will start today, continuing through tomorrow, and essentially the first part of Saturday, the farther that you get to the north. So this is Friday morning, so tomorrow morning, very early. You have to have a way to get warnings through the overnight hours because as Elsa spins through, we're still watching the potential for a few of those isolated spin-up tornadoes, and those happen fast. Other than that, we've got really strong winds pushing past New York and the tri-state area up into Connecticut, over into Boston. This is a quick mover, and this is gaining speed as it pushes off to the northeast. So that is good news in the fact that you won't see rain all throughout the day, but it is going to be soggy when it does come through. And tropical rainfall, so you're talking about some impressive rainfall amounts, 2 to 3 inches, maybe potentially even up to 5 inches in some areas where we see repeated heavy rainfall. Anywhere from 1 to 2 inches across the New Jersey area down to Atlantic City. The New York area, tri-state, could see 3 to 5 inches of rain, and those isolated higher amounts always possible because this rain is going to be falling on top of already very saturated soil. When that happens, it immediately turns to runoff. Where does that runoff go? Typically on the roads. So travel, it's going to be a little bit dicey for the next couple of days in New England. And of course, the wind going to be a factor too. Wind gusts anywhere 30, 35 miles per hour, potentially up to 40 and 50.
Wendy's only serves one kind of breakfast, a better one. So chuck your old soggy egg witch and pick up 2 of these freshly made sandwiches at Wendy's for just $4. Choose wisely. Choose Wendy's 2 for $4.
Say hello to the new athleisure. Sleek design, cloud-like comfort, athletic technology, and Italian leather. Get comfortable at wolfandshepherds.com.
A logo can do more than identify your company. It can connect in meaningful ways, energize your team, and inspire your customers. We're 04am, and we know your logo on the right product can create moments that matter. With 30 years of experience and thousands of products to choose from, we guarantee your order will be right the first time, on time, and for a great price. Be certain that the right moments will matter. Explore thousands of promotional products at 4imprint.com. 4imprint, for certain.
Severe storm damage can cost you thousands in repairs. Hi, Phil Swift here. This storm season, you need the entire Flex Seal family of products. Make fast, easy, on-the-spot repairs. Seal up cracks and holes to prevent wind and water from damaging your home. Now it's easy to make quick automotive repairs. Severe storms can be a nightmare. Now you can patch huge holes to seal up roof leaks. Easily fix busted downspouts and replace loose siding. Floods can destroy your home. Push FlexPace deep into wet surfaces to help prevent flood damage. With the Flex Seal family of products, you can patch, bond, seal, and repair. Even the worst conditions are no match for the Flex Seal family of products. Get the Flex Seal family of products at these fine retailers.
Make this the summer you taught them what it means to serve. The summer of hauling happiness by the ton and bringing home hardware by the handful, where traditions were passed down on the tailgate. And the only thing more powerful than the feeling was the truck that took you to it. Make this the summer of Ram.
Now get $3,550 in total values, plus finance and get no monthly payments for 90 days on the 2021 Ram 1500.
I love it. The technology.
This is new video just into the Weather Channel. We've got some trees down across the Carolinas. This is in Hilton Head. Those winds, those trees, no match for these winds. Actually, Hilton Head has seen one of our stronger gusts out of this storm, up to 81 miles per hour on the Sound, just outside of Hilton Head Island near the lighthouse. So if you're familiar with that area, typically it's pretty calm. The waters around Hilton Head very calm, but certainly not today. I mean, this is a mess.
Yeah, stranger to tropical storm winds either. Remember when Matthew came through and all the trees that were down. So I'm sure this is bringing back bad memories for people with this.
Well, we're taking a live look right now at Elsa and where Elsa is moving. You can see some of those deeper reds and those orange colors. That's some of the thunderstorms in Elsa, some of those cooler cloud tops and those higher cloud tops. That's where we're likely seeing some very, very heavy rain right now as it passes Raleigh, Wilmington, making its way towards the Hatteras Cape, where we could see those winds pick up pretty significantly.
Yeah, we're actually getting close to that 11 o'clock advisory coming out. So we'll get a new locator on exactly where the center of the storm is. But you can just see from the radar, from the satellite perspective, that it's moving along very fast, actually, and that center circulation is now pushing up, getting closer to North Carolina.
And if there is any good news with Elsa, it's the fact that it is moving really fast. So it is going to blow through areas like Raleigh, through Richmond, up through Washington, D.C. and Baltimore today, and that's going to bring a lot of rain. That's why there's a flash flood watch in effect. We're talking about maybe a month, maybe 2 months worth of rain happening in 24 hours.
I saw in Charleston, it was 3.64 in just 3 hours. And so that's the kind of rain that we're going to get up and down this entire stretch. And look, it's well outside of the cone, because the cone is for the center circulation. So then the impacts are being felt, 150 miles away from the center of circulation.
And we mentioned this earlier, that if we had to pick somewhere to be in this,
I'd almost be under it.
Yeah, I'd rather be in the center than on the eastern side, because that's kind of the dirty side of a hurricane, where you get the really heavy rain, the really gusty winds, and of course those tornado spin-ups as well. 3 to 5 inches of rain possible in the Raleigh area today, and that's going to continue. That's moving in right now. On top of that, the wind gusts really strong, so you have the saturated soil, you get the wind that moves through, and we could see more trees down like we saw on Hilton Head.
If you have several hours like we had in Myrtle Beach, about 1 a.m. this morning, you started picking up the winds, and it's still windy, right? And so at some point that takes a toll on some trees, especially if they don't have a good root system. 35, 40 mile per hour winds, and watching that continue to climb up through the mid-Atlantic, Norfolk, Virginia, Hampton Roads area, Virginia Beach, get ready. By this afternoon, things are really going to go downhill. This is 8 o'clock tonight. Now we get winds 40 to even 50 miles per hour.
And that's because you have less friction over the ocean, and kind of the North Carolina coast sticks out there. So you get all of the wind just coming right in your direction. Because of that, too, we're going to have a pretty big rip current threat with all those onshore winds. It causes the water to pile up. It's got to have somewhere to go, so it goes right back out.
We saw in Jackie's shot, and I thought that was a great point that she made about the no surfing, because a lot of times after a storm, you will see the surfers come out, right? You know, you don't always have big waves down here, especially in the coast of South Carolina, but today it's just too rough, too turbulent, too big of a risk of rip currents.
And we're going to see that continue all the way up the eastern seaboard. So in areas that you can do some surfing where the waves are a little bit bigger, I wouldn't recommend it for today or tomorrow.
Storms anyway up here.
Yeah, exactly.
Speaking of storms, what about in Texas?
Oh my goodness, torrential downpours are causing some serious problems along the Texas Gulf Coast. South Padre Island under a flash flood watch until at least tomorrow night. Nearby, McAllen Miller International Airport recorded a record-breaking 4.63 inches of rain there yesterday. We could rattle off a lot of stats from this area,
and bigger numbers than that,
actually. Huge numbers. Padre Island, just outside of Corpus Christi, close to 18 inches of rain in just 3 days. So 72 hours, 18 inches of rain. It's still falling in many of those same areas.
Still happening. South Corpus Christi right now, some new roads being closed because of it. This is how much we've seen in the past 48 hours, but a lot of it, you know, even confined into a smaller time frame. Really heavy rainfall, up over a foot. You know, this amount of water vapor in the atmosphere that we have right here is as big as or bigger than we're dealing with the tropical system.
We have seen bigger rainfall totals out of South Texas than what we've seen out of Tropical Storm Elsa. And look at this, we still have an additional 5 to 8 inches of rain to go. At that point, I wouldn't recommend any travel because it's just going to run right over the roads. You can never tell how deep that water is.
We're going to bring it up the coast a little bit too. So it's really been down here, Corpus Christi and points nearby, which has seen some of the biggest totals, but now we're going to see just this moisture. I mean, where you see the darkest and brightest colors, that's where we have the most amounts of atmospheric moisture, and it's really widespread all the way up to San Antonio.
So likely to see that flash flooding once again. Corpus Christi, have a way to get those alerts because we could see like what we saw yesterday in Rockport as well as Fulton, where we had a flash flood emergency issued and we had water rescues ongoing. This is going to be possible once again today. Corpus Christi, Victoria, over into the Freeport area.
I'm watching streams and creeks as well. The Oso Creek is one of them that we're watching. These are all the active flash flood warnings here.
Jen, just look at this. And that is a lot of tropical moisture, and you can tell because of all the lightning inside of this too.
Luckily for now, it's over the water, but unfortunately we could see it move on shore. You see that general movement. This story, along with Tropical Storm Elsa, we're continuing to cover right here for you on the Weather Channel.
Lots of vitamin.
It's not rain, not ice. Elsa is using to coat the East Coast. A little Frozen reference there. Second landfalling tropical system of the year has made a mess in Florida and Georgia, and now it's set its sights on the early part of your weekend.
I mean, it really has. You've seen all the mess right here from Elsa so far, and we're tracking storm alerts from one end of the I-95 corridor to the other here today with you until 1 o'clock. Thanks for staying with us so that we can keep you informed. I'm meteorologist Jen Carfagno.
And I'm meteorologist Molly McCullum. Summer storms, major flooding, and of course, Elsa is making a messy, messy Thursday as you prepare for your weekend.
From the Tar Heel State to Hampton Roads and on up to Beantown, Elsa will bring a host of problems as we round out this first full week of July.
And it's not just those beach communities that will get walloped by the wind and the rain. This storm will crash inland parties as it links up with another system moving in from the west. That's the same system that's been bringing lots of problems to the Northeast the past couple of days. Well, the center of Elsa is bringing torrential rains to the Carolinas. Power outages are growing in the Carolinas. Right now, nearly 17,000 customers do not have electricity there. Tropical storm warnings extend north into parts of the mid-Atlantic and all the way into New England. PSE&G is preparing crews for Elsa's arrival tomorrow as it works to restore power to remaining customers from yesterday's thunderstorms and the day before. We want to send it over to Jen because we have the latest advisory from the National Hurricane Center on Elsa. It's actually starting to pick up speed.
Yeah, a little bit now. So it was moving at 18. Now it is moving at 20 miles per hour, and it is getting closer. It's now into North Carolina. We're going to watch its approach up, getting close to the Raleigh and Triangle area. Here's that circulation, and you can see it down here. I mean, it's going to take a beeline like this heading up, but you notice how far to the east all of the impacts are. Actually, the tropical storm force conditions extend out 115 miles from the east of the center of circulation. So that center point doesn't mean a whole lot. Actually, it's all about what's happening on the east side and actually up to the north of it as well, because out ahead of it, we are getting a lot of rainfall that is very heavy at times. Now, here's the circulation. Look at the wind field all coming in towards it. Winds are gusting 32 miles per hour right now in Wilmington. Cape Hatteras picking up 24 miles per hour. Myrtle Beach, we are still gusting now to nearly 40 miles per hour. Finally getting a little bit of a breakdown towards Charleston. The tornado watch is active. This goes until 3 o'clock local time. Concerns about spin-ups all throughout this area that could happen really fast. So make sure you have a way to get your warnings here today. Tornado watch means that conditions are ripe for it. If there's a warning, that means that there is a tornado either happening either on Doppler radar as indicated or on the ground. Now, in terms of rainfall, I mean, look how it's all lifting north really fast. Wilmington, we're through the worst of it. A few more showers left here, but the worst of it is lifting north. Raleigh, we're actually just getting into some of the heaviest of rain and there and over towards Chapel Hill. We're in a very steady rain for the next 2 hours or so. Sanford, look at this rain. Pinehurst, North Carolina, you are just in a soaking rain out there. And this is now pushing north into Virginia as well. Here's everything in motion, and we're going to give you a forecast, taking what's happening now and bring it up along the East Coast. You know, we're concerned about the power outages that could come with it. We've already seen a number down through Savannah, Brunswick, Georgia, Charleston area, still some power outages ongoing, and of course in the Myrtle Beach area. We also have some back around the Charlotte area. And so, you know, I think the bulk of it, though, we have to watch for with the combination of wind and rain that may take down some trees, and that could take down some power lines. All right, let's get into the nuts and bolts now. What's happening with Elsa?
Yeah, we've had quite a few of storm reports. You just heard Jen talking about the possibilities of power outages with trees coming down on top of power lines. We've seen a lot of reports of wind, water, even tornadoes, water spouts from the Gulf Coast of Florida all the way through Jacksonville, up the coast of Georgia and into the Carolinas, where Elsa is moving right now. We've seen some really impressive wind gusts. This is right near the Hilton Head Island area in South Carolina, 81 miles per hour. That is the strongest that we've seen so far. Also some 70-mile-per-hour wind gusts Key West over into Horseshoe Beach, Florida. The footprint of rain has been impressive, about 3 to 5 inches of rain in a lot of areas. But I do want to bring your attention to the Fort Myers area, Punta Gorda, as well as Port Charlotte, Fort Myers, Sanibel, bringing in some of the highest rainfall totals. And that's because as Elsa was lifting to the north, there was a plume of moisture that wrapped around and it connected directly to the Gulf of Mexico. That brought in a lot of tropical moisture. Here's the latest on Elsa, 45 miles per hour. Those sustained winds. So we mentioned this earlier. We expected those wind speeds to pick up a little bit, and it certainly has now, only about 5 miles per hour. But we will see Elsa continue across areas like the Carolinas, moving into Raleigh right now. It's going to get worse before it gets better for you in Raleigh, across I-95, and the Hatteras Cape could see some really strong winds up to close to 50 miles per hour as we get later into the evening. And quite a bit of those cold cloud tops where you see those reds and those oranges. Those are some deep thunderstorms in Elsa, and you'll notice all of this is on the eastern side. So the center is moving over the Charlotte-Raleigh area, but we have just to the east of that all of those thunderstorms, all of the wind, and of course the chance for those isolated spin-up tornadoes, always a threat with these landfalling tropical systems. Well, tropical storm conditions are expected by tonight in Virginia, where coastal communities are putting the final touches on preps for Elsa, and this includes Virginia Beach, which is under a tropical storm warning. We're joined live now on the phone by Drew Langford, Media and Communications with the City Department of Public Works. So, Drew, Elsa will be the Virginia Beach's first brush with the tropical weather this season. What are your crews focusing on in the hours ahead?
Well, we've got a lot of areas around here that are low-lying, surrounded by water. So we're trying to look at a lot of the troubled areas. We've had our crews out checking all our pump stations, checking trouble areas. We've got vacuum trucks going around the city clearing drains, crews on all the ditches, particularly in the areas that we're most concerned about. And really the southern part of the city, which butts up right up to the North Carolina line, where there's been a lot of attention out there because if the winds come in from the south, we could have a lot of flooding there even without rain.
So you mentioned some of those trouble spots. Which ones are you focusing on specifically that you expect maybe water to pile up or the wind to even be a problem?
Well, we've got Shore Drive, which runs parallel with the Chesapeake Bay, and a lot of the water that comes in there goes through channels right into the middle of the city, where Rosemont Road, Windsor Woods area, where we have a lot of flooding problems. Also down near the ocean front, a lot of low-lying areas there. We do have 2 pump stations down there, and we checked them yesterday. They're in good shape. So a lot of the places where we know we're going to get a lot of wind and low-lying areas with water.
Always good to be prepared ahead of time. So how are your crews preparing for your city's beautiful beaches? You have a lot of wonderful beaches. What are you doing in preparation for Elsa?
For the beach, we kept a close eye on it. The wind's starting to pick up here, so if it continues like that, we'll be removing whatever needs to be taken off the beach. We've also gone to all our work sites and had everything either tied down or removed that needs to be. The beach is looking good now. It just depends on what path the storm takes and what happens. But wind is wind is really what we're concerned about there. But for the most part, the city we're pretty well set up. We've got a crew ready to go overnight if needed, and we double checked all supplies yesterday. So we think we're in pretty good shape as far as being ready.
And as far as advice for your residents, how can they be ready both before and then after Elsa moves through?
Well, get the supplies in you might need, particularly batteries. Anytime you have a combination of wind and water like this, there's always a chance of power outages, so be prepared for that. If you don't have to go out during the storm, please don't, because we'll have crews out. It makes it a lot easier the less traffic there is. And if they've got things in their yard or wherever that need to be tied down, do that. It's better to kind of be prepared for the worst of the storm and hope that we don't get it.
It's great advice there. Prepare for the worst, hope for the best, especially in areas like Virginia Beach, expecting Elsa to move in today. Thank you so much to Drew Langford, Media and Communications with the Virginia Beach Department of Public Works. Well, Elsa's spawning storms across the First Coast as a waterspout churns off the coast of Jacksonville. It's a scary sight right there. You can actually see it well into the distance, which is not very typical when you have those storms moving through. These are usually wrapped in rain, and it makes them very difficult to see. We also had some wind gusts, Jen, in the area gusting to near 50 miles per hour.
Yeah, and you know, what happens often is that water spouts over the water, but then when they move on land, there are tornadoes, and this does happen with landfalling tropical systems all the time. Unfortunately, we saw a number of tornadoes on land yesterday. We had 2 in Georgia, and then we had 3 reports coming in out of Florida. Surveys will be ongoing, but the one in Georgia, one of them did hit an RV park where there were injuries and there was a lot of destruction, and so certainly that's a big concern when you have that kind of damage. Now, let's talk more about what's happening with the rainfall today and some of these outer bands where you could be looking at that possible spin up of tornadoes. It's one of our big concerns with tropical systems. Everyone focuses in on the track and the wind and the rain, but these isolated tornadoes obviously can do some damage, like we saw at that RV park yesterday in Georgia. And so we've got, you know, places north of I-40 right now. That one band is starting to lift in and moving on up. That's an area to watch. We're under tornado watch until 3 o'clock, but that's an area to watch for these possible spin ups. The rain itself is going to be a factor on the roads and for travelers, and we have 3s on the Torcon out here today. It's generally windy, and then you add in that extra layer of risk when it comes to these thunderstorms. So let's time things out. Wilmington, things are getting better as we speak. It's all lifting north, but that's one of the bands I'm concerned about, and it will extend up in through the Triangle area. So heads up for you. Just watch and be aware of any warnings that may be issued. We get you into the 5 o'clock time frame, though, getting better in Raleigh. Then we start to lift everything north through the Outer Banks, up through Virginia, including around Norfolk and Hampton Roads area, Virginia Beach. We were just talking about you. That worst weather really comes in about 4 or 5 o'clock or so, and then does get out of here by this evening. And after that, our attention turns to the north and east. Molly.
We're going to talk about the Carolinas right now because that is where Elsa is pushing through right now, dropping a lot of rain. Because of that, there is a flash flood watch in effect for areas like Raleigh, across the I-95 corridor, up into the Richmond area, Virginia Beach, where we just spoke to the Public Works Department, how they're preparing and expecting a lot of water and a lot of wind. Here's the forecast cone of Elsa moving directly over Raleigh, but I want you to notice this is the center of Elsa over Raleigh. This is an east-loaded side storm. storm bringing a lot of rain through Wilmington right now, a lot of rain and wind through the Carolina coast, and then up through Virginia and continuing up the I-95 corridor. We're expecting anywhere to 3 to 5 inches of rain around the Raleigh metro area today. We could see some isolated higher amounts where we see training of thunderstorms, potentially some lightning that always enhances those rainfall rates. Raleigh, a little bit behind on your rainfall so far this year. You will make that up potentially in just a couple of hours. So we're talking about 30 to 35 miles per hour of wind across the Raleigh area. But look at this. Take a close look on the Hatteras Cape, how these winds pick up as we see Elsa lift off to the north. It's going to pull a lot of those winds directly into the Hatteras Cape, and that's going to allow those wind speeds to amplify 40, even 50 miles per hour. But it doesn't stop here. We have to talk about all the way up the I-95 corridor up to the Atlantic City area on alert for Elsa today as the storm takes aim at the northeast. Heavy rain, wind, flooding, all on tap for Atlantic City and the Jersey Shore today. A tropical storm warning is in effect, as well as a flash flood watch goes into effect tomorrow evening. Jen, it's tough up in the northeast because they've had several days of storms, power outages, some really intense heat, and then here comes Elsa.
Now we bring a tropical storm. You're like, what else are you going to throw at me this week, Mother Nature? It has been a mess of a week. And we have flash flood watches that are up that go through tomorrow evening here for much of the Northeast, including eastern Pennsylvania, Philadelphia, all of New Jersey, parts of the New York City area, and then southern New England. Now, especially concerned about the New York City metro because this is where the rainfall guidance is showing, the flash flood guidance is showing us that we can only handle about 2 to 3 inches of rain in a 3-hour period. So this comes up. This is overnight tonight. This is 3 a.m. Here comes the moisture from Elsa, and it comes right through the New York City area, and we could easily see 3 inches of rain in 3 hours. That's what's been happening pretty much everywhere else in the South. So now we bring this in throughout the day. This is in the morning, afternoon, moves up into Boston about 1 o'clock or so, and we see that moisture go up through Maine for the end of the day. But then another couple of showers still may finish out the day out here because we still have a front hanging out back off to the north and east. So for us, in terms of how much rainfall, it's a widespread 1 to 2 inches of rain. If we get that 3 to 5 in a short window, meaning 3-hour window here across parts of the tri-state, that's going to cause flash flooding. Very concerned about that in this zone. In fact, Weather Prediction Center showing us where we're likely to have flash flooding from Connecticut up through Massachusetts and then right up across down East Maine. Molly?
Well, Florida and the southeast, not the only spots seeing some flooding as storms crank along the Gulf Coast, but this is on the other side of the Gulf Coast where high water is moving into parts of Texas. Vehicles in Rockport splashing through streets that look more like rivers than roads. And this is what you never want to see, this many people driving through water. It's just not a good idea. Over a foot of rain falling, swamping the area just south in Corpus Christi. They had 2 July months worth of rain in the last 12 hours. The rainfall amounts here have just been absolutely unreal in South Texas. We're talking about 8 to 12 inches of rain over the past 48 hours. Anywhere that you see those brighter pink colors or those darker red colors, that is a lot of rain. We're talking months worth of rain in a matter of just 2 days. And here's the worst part is there is more rain expected, anywhere to 5 to 8 inches of rain near the Victoria, Texas area, extending down into Corpus Christi, and anywhere that we see repeated heavy rainfall, we could see amounts higher than 5 to 8 inches of rain. Here's why. This is coming directly from the Gulf of Mexico. A lot of atmospheric moisture in place. This is basically the measure of the moisture available, and it is a lot. It is very tropical, and that allows rainfall rates to be extremely impressive. Where we are most likely to see the flooding, Freeport, Victoria, down into Corpus Christi. That's where we have some flash flood warnings right now. Look at all of this thunderstorms right off the coast. Thankfully, it is off the coast right now, but still streaming into areas like Corpus Christi where you have to be careful today. Just don't get out on the roadways if you don't have to.
DiGiorno.
Around here, they say if you don't like the weather, just wait a minute.
I love to watch the waves after a storm. The storm can be long gone, but the waves just keep going.
Ask my history teacher where to go to college. He said, go where you like the weather. Best advice I've ever gotten.
Get into the out there. The Weather Channel.
Let's take a look at Elsa's path now as it moves through portions of the Carolinas. It looks like we might have a brand new tornado warning. These pop up very quickly, and this is for Goldsboro, Salston, and Stony Creek. This goes until 11:45 local time. This is radar indicated, but it is on the eastern side of Elsa, the center of Elsa, and this is where we typically see these really quick spin-ups. So if you live in this area, the county of Wayne in North Carolina, go ahead and take those tornado precautions right across I-795, so the interstate, and then pretty much anywhere along the eastern side. Make sure you have a way to get these warnings because these will spin up quickly and you will not be able to see them. I mean, look at how much rain is in that area too. Certainly you will not see that coming. Right now, it doesn't look like the rotation is overly impressive, but we could see that tighten up just about at any time. So Goldsboro, go ahead and take those tornado precautions, as well as Salston and Stony Creek. You are under a tornado warning until 11:45 Eastern time. Well, it's going to be a couple of stormy days in the Northeast. Crews are clearing the debris and damage from severe storms this week. More are on the way today before Elsa arrives. Both Baltimore and New York City face flash floods watches today. So we are looking at when will the worst of this finally clear out. Let's get some timing on your forecast for the Northeast.
It's all about timing, actually. If you can wait now, for travel in North Carolina, it will get a lot better the next 2 hours. Let's take it up to D.C. and Baltimore, where, your lunchtime hour, not so bad, right? But we're going to see this moisture start creeping up by later on today. Thunderstorms actually could pop first. These little guys up here, these renegade storms, they could be bringing in some strong winds, maybe even, some at severe limits. So that's something to be aware of. But also the heavy rain comes in, and then all the Elsa moisture lifts north as we get into the overnight. Now, this is 8 o'clock, and you see how we're sort of, on the edge of it. And so Baltimore and D.C. and this portion of I-95 may not get the worst of the Elsa rain, but we are going to get some other scattered showers, and we'll be in general in that circulation. So we'll see, I think, some breezy conditions at the very least. Jumping up to Philadelphia. We time things up here for you, and this is today lunchtime. Thunderstorms start popping this afternoon. Again, non-related, and then here comes the related moisture from Elsa as we get into the overnight, and so it becomes a soaker of a rain event here while you're sleeping. Heavy rain is going to be a concern, and we'll see this into New York City tomorrow morning, 6 o'clock. Oh, it's going to be a mess in New York City. Real quick, I want to show you what's happening. First round of storms, second round of storms, non-related to Elsa. Then here comes the Elsa rain, 6 a.m. With all these batches of rain coming through, Molly, I'm very concerned about driving and, of course, flash flooding.
Well, it just makes it stressful to drive through. Elsa's high wind and rain will make driving dangerous. So meteorologist Reynolds Wolf shows us crucial things to know before you get in the car and start driving in the rain.
Driving during a downpour can be inconvenient and dangerous. While a rainstorm can reduce visibility, those first drops can sometimes be the most dangerous factor on the road.
When it first starts raining is the most dangerous time to be on the road because all the oil and the antifreeze that's dripped off of cars has soaked into the asphalt, and it rises to the surface when it starts raining, and then it mixes with the water, so it makes the road really slick and dangerous.
That's because once water covers the road, hydroplaning can occur.
Hydroplaning means there's water between the tire and the road surface. So instead of the tire actually touching the asphalt, that contact patch in reality has water in between, so you can't steer the car and get to the location you need to be.
But it's not just the rain. Other factors can make a big difference in how your car handles the road.
80% of your driving decisions are based on visibility, especially when it's raining really heavily out. It's going to affect the distance that you can see. And your headlights are going to be also really important, especially at night.
Make sure your headlights are working properly. Change those wiper blades every 6 months and turn the cruise control off. Plus, don't use heavy braking. You'll just lose traction.
The biggest mistake drivers make when it starts to rain is they drive through flooded roadways, they use their cruise control, and they don't give enough stopping distance between them and the vehicle in front of them. And that can lead to an accident.
We want to talk about the threat for flash flooding across the Northeast today and even the Midwest. You've been plagued with several days of storms. Here's why. Here's our front that we've been watching for several days now, pushing across areas like Chicago into St. Louis. Day after day, it is just triggering thunderstorms over and over again, and we still have some right now this morning. Indianapolis, quite a bit of lightning, some gusty winds and some heavy rain moving through. Those are not severe right now, but they're still very dangerous. Where we've seen repeated heavy rainfall just to the south of Albany, we have a flash flood warning, a lot of lightning in this area as well. I'm very concerned about the tri-state area with the flash flooding and the wind and potentially some more power outages for you today. Let's take this into the future and watch what's going to happen today. Of course, we have several factors at play. We have this front moving through, but then also keep an eye on Elsa pushing up as we go into the evening time frame, getting closer and closer to Washington, D.C. with storms erupting across Pennsylvania over into New York. This moves into Philly as well as New York very early tomorrow morning with those gusty winds and, of course, flooding likely across that tri-state area.
Get more out of summer with safe.
Track Elsa up the East Coast. Here's what we know right now. Elsa is to blame for at least one death in the U.S. One person was killed by a falling tree in Jacksonville, Florida yesterday. Power outages, of course, a problem. Right now, nearly 20,000 customers are without power in Georgia, South Carolina, and North Carolina. PSE&G preparing for the crews to restore power in the Northeast, and this is after yesterday's thunderstorms. North Carolina has activated its State of Emergency Operations Center. So a lot going on with Elsa.
Yes, there is. And we're so glad that you're trusting the Weather Channel to get you through the midday hours here as we track Elsa and several other threats actually across the country. We still have tremendous rain happening in Texas. In fact, here, a lot of flooding happening around the Corpus Christi area. And not even just in Texas, but we have to talk about the Northeast as well, which has seen days of flooding just from summer thunderstorms. A lot of trees
and then here comes Elsa. So the first week of July, of course, very busy, starting off with a bang. It's not just the fireworks. Elsa leaving quite a bit of destruction in its trek up the eastern seaboard. Massive RVs were flipped over at Kings Bay base in Georgia yesterday. In Jacksonville, Florida, a possible tornado tore through, leaving a trail of destruction behind. And there are reports of trees and limbs down across several states now. Yeah, there really is a lot of damage along its path here. And I know, everyone thinks it's just a tropical storm. Well, even a tropical storm can create a lot of damage. And we've seen that. Now, the winds, Charleston finally getting a break. We had been gusting over 30 for something like 10 or 12 hours. Myrtle Beach, though, wow. Still doing it. 41 miles per hour. It even seems like as Elsa's been lifting to the north, the wind has been increasing along the coast. We also have a tornado watch out in effect. Anytime you see a landfalling tropical system, you get these small spin ups. So anywhere from Fayetteville, Wilmington, Morehead City, the coast of North Carolina have to be aware. And here's why, because they spin up very quickly. We have a tornado warning right now for portions of Pikeville, Salston, and Stony Creek until 11:45 local time. And watching this is the reflectivity showing you where the rain is. Don't see a hook on that. But when we look at the velocity, but watching this little right in here. And so this is lifting both north and actually to the west at the same time. So be cautious, obviously in this warning here, but even surrounding it, just make sure you stay on guard, because as this lifts north, we'll have to watch for rotation. And even just a few moments ago, the rotation didn't look that impressive. So it's just an example of how quickly this can tighten up and get going. So we're tracking it towards Salston. The timing for you as we make it towards Elroy, 11:31, Stony Creek, 11:42, Fremont, 11:51, Black Creek, 11:56 here. And we've taken it outside of the warning area just so you can see and get an early heads up here in case it does hold together through that entire stretch. And sometimes, Jen, when we start seeing these pockets of spinning in the rotation, sometimes we start to see more after we see the initial one. A lot of rain moving into Raleigh right now, and just outside of Raleigh, on the east side of Raleigh, that's where we're seeing that swath of very heavy rain push across the I-95 corridor. It was so heavy in Pinehurst. We got to get an update total from this area, because I'm curious what that put down. I mean, that heavy rain sat over you for quite a while. It's now lifting north, and you're going to get into some better weather in the coming hours. Again, this tornado warning for Wayne County, one last look at it, Pikeville, Salston, and Stony Creek until 11:45. Well, Tropical Storm Elsa continues its destructive path up the East Coast this morning. Wilmington, North Carolina, you are under a tropical storm warning. We could see flooding rain, tropical storm force winds. There's also the possibility we could see some isolated tornadoes, just like what we're seeing right now, some tornado warnings. So please stay weather aware today. And it's not just the Carolina coast getting hammered by Elsa and spinning up the East Coast. Inland spots could see torrential rain pouring across I-85 city streets in the Queen City of Charlotte. Charlotte's starting to improve just a little bit. You still got those dark skies, but areas like Charlotte, you're going to see some dry periods in the afternoon. After all of the rain that you saw this morning, it was quite the just slug of moisture that moved through Charlotte and made for a very messy commute. You will see a dry period, but then look what happens later this evening. You're going to get some wraparound showers on the backside of Elsa, giving you another round of rain. Gastonia, Rock Hill, I-485, seeing that really heavy rain tonight, and Raleigh. Of course, we were just talking about that, all of that heavy rain continuing to move through, tropical downpours, lightning possible, and the spin-up tornadoes. That's what we're seeing as we continue into the afternoon. This will improve later in the evening, but just like with Charlotte, some wraparound showers are possible on the backside of that, especially across the Fayetteville area. Anywhere from 2 to 3 inches of rain, and because of that, there is some flash flooding concerns where we see that rain train over the same areas, especially on those interstates and those roads. That's where you have to take it a little extra slow today. On top of that, yes, with tropical systems, we also have to think about the wind. 30 to 35 miles per hour across the Raleigh area, even stronger just to the east in Wilson. The winds typically stronger on the eastern side. Greenville, North Carolina, 40 to 50 miles per hour. I want you to pay close attention to the time on that. That's 5 p.m. this evening. So when a lot of people are headed home from work out on those roadways that have a lot of water, you're going to have to battle the wind as well. But Raleigh, this starts to improve by tomorrow.
We've never been so ready to get...
Let's get you the latest with Tropical Storm Elsa. This is the 11 o'clock advisory from the National Hurricane Center. Wind speeds up just a little bit, as well as the speed of Elsa now moving to the northeast at 20 miles per hour. That's some good news, though, because it is going to move across areas like Raleigh, as well as Richmond and Norfolk. You're up next. It's going to move through very, very quickly. But here's the problem. As it moves through, it's spinning up a few of those isolated tornadoes. So we do have a couple of warnings out right now, and we will continue to watch that very, very closely throughout the rest of the day. We're going to take you to the Torcon right now and what we've been seeing for this area, especially areas like Raleigh, Wilmington, Morehead City, Norfolk, the Hatteras Cape. You've got a Torcon of 3 today. It's a 2 back towards Raleigh. At any time, we could see one of these spin up. They happen just so quickly.
I know. And you saw that boardwalk packed at Ocean City, Maryland, and the weather's going to go downhill pretty soon, actually. So for now, enjoy that scene out there. But I hope everyone here knows what is coming. By later on this afternoon, we'll get some showers and storms in. Now, right now, some of the heaviest rain and the most concern for severe weather is with this tornado warning in Wayne County, Pikeville, Salston, Stony Creek. You were under this until 11:45. It's within, look, heavy rain. You won't see it coming. So go to your safe shelter. Do not look out the window. You want to get into your interior room away from walls and windows outside. Into the, you want to get into your basement if you have it, if not, interior bathroom or closet. So even though it's radar indicated right now, that doesn't mean that it's not on the ground because, like you mentioned, you may not even be able to see it. Right, exactly. So we're watching this area, and I've been watching how the velocity has shown us the rotation, or at least the apparent rotation, cycling a bit here. It doesn't look as tight as it once did just about 10 minutes ago, but certainly that could change it again, which is why this warning remains in effect.
Well, we are going to time this out for you, and potentially for the next couple of hours, you have to be careful. Anywhere in this tornado watch, we're talking about Kingston, Jacksonville, Morehead City, all under a tornado watch until 3 p.m. local time.
Well, wind and waves from tropical storms like Elsa are one cause of beach erosion along the coast.
Meteorologist Alex Wilson, she shows us how the scope of the problem, how it can happen, and some of the factors behind it.
Ever head to the beach only to find a sand cliff where the beach used to be? It's actually a natural process called erosion, which can be found in coastal areas all around the U.S. It happens when the energy of moving water, like waves, pulls sand away from the shore and then deposits it in other places, like deeper water or another coastal area. This can occur gradually, but when the winds and waves kick up, erosion can be quick and dramatic, leaving behind lower and shorter beaches, or sometimes no coastline at all.
There were actually woods at one time. They came and they did hunting. There was lots of land before this occurred. You know, nature goes where it wants to go.
Shorelines that get tropical storms are more at risk than others because of a combination of high tide storm surge mixed with strong waves. But nature's protector, the sand dunes, help separate the lower beach from higher ground. The roots of the dune grasses help anchor the sand in place and keep water from going too far inland. Unfortunately, when humans build along the coast, it can damage those dunes and make erosion worse. And in turn, erosion can make it worse for humans. According to NOAA's U.S. Climate Resilience Toolkit, $500 million worth of coastal property is lost or damaged due to erosion every year. To mitigate that, the federal government spends an average of $150 million each year on beach nourishment and other control measures to try to protect the disappearing coastline. While beach erosion is mostly a natural process that's been happening for ages, human activity is speeding it up, which can cause flooding, damage to roads, and sometimes make entire buildings collapse into the ocean.
Tropical storm Elsa continues to barrel up the East Coast and is taking aim at places in the Northeast, like right here, Providence, Rhode Island. Providence, you are under a tropical storm warning right now. We could see tropical storm force winds by tomorrow whipping through. The other threat we're keeping an eye on is the potential for dangerous flash flooding. In areas that Elsa's moving through right now, like Charlotte, as well as portions of Virginia, Harrisonburg, you're like, hey, bring on the rain. We need the rain. In the Northeast, you're like, no, we don't need it anymore. We've seen days and days of thunderstorms. A flash flood watch out from Washington, D.C., across the Maryland area, Atlantic City, up into Philly, New York, Hartford, Boston, Trenton, all the way into Portland, and even up into Bangor, Maine. A huge area that Elsa's going to move through and pretty much riding right along the I-95 corridor. So this is Friday mornings. This is overnight tonight into very early tomorrow morning, moving through D.C., Atlantic City, pushing through New York very early tomorrow morning with some of those gusty winds. Even by 8 a.m., it's going to be a mess as you start off your morning in the tri-state area. So just be prepared. You are going to need extra time to get wherever you're going. You're going to have to battle those winds, torrential downpours, as well as potentially some isolated spin-up tornadoes like we always see with these landfalling systems. Boston, by tomorrow afternoon, things will get interesting for you and go downhill very quickly as Elsa races off to the north and to the northeast. If there's any good news in here is that this is a quick mover, but you could even have some afternoon storms that move in after that, just from the front that's going to help push Elsa along as well. So anywhere from 2 to 3 inches of rain widespread. We could see more around the New York area, Long Island. That's where we could see isolated amounts, 3 to 5 inches of rain. So flash flooding is likely. Have a way to get those warnings in case the water starts to rise in your area.
We made you.
Let's get you the latest on Elsa right now. You can see roaring past Raleigh, bringing a slug of moisture through Wilmington, Hatteras, Morehead City, and starting to move into the Virginia area. Now, Jen, some people in Virginia, they've been a little bit dry lately. They're thinking we could use some rain from Elsa. Right. It might be a little too much of a good thing, but there is a lot of rain moving past the Raleigh area, up I-85, up I-95. It's going to be pretty much all of the cities along I-95 that have to pay attention to Elsa over the next 2 days.
I mean, it's always like, be careful what you ask for, right? And we're really seeing this starting to move in fast. Look at Norfolk, Virginia. The outer reaches already now bringing up the moisture and some thunderstorms coming in with that extreme outer band.
We have seen some spin-ups as well, but I do want to point out that the tornado warning we had earlier in Wayne County, North Carolina, that has since been expired. Yes. So that's good news.
Look at how far-reaching this is. I mean, how big the system's really expanded now that it's been moving up through the mid-Atlantic all the way to Roanoke. You're in this outer band up here to the north and west. And that was the case in the Atlanta metro yesterday, where you picked up 3 inches of rain in one of those. So, even on the, large scale extent, you could pick up some really heavy rain, but the core of it will bring most of the rain.
That's why we have a flash flood watch out. And it's for those areas that can pick up that, really impressive rainfall totals with just one band moving through.
Right. So let's track it. We're going to put the cone on here, which is for the center of circulation, and then show you the extent of the impacts, which is well outside of the cone. And obviously right now, Raleigh, you're in the thick of it here. But by the time we get to tonight, improvement, then we turn our attention to the Northeast.
And that's an area that has seen more than enough rain, more than enough storms, still dealing with some power outages. And on top of that, Elsa's going to move right through. The wind is going to be an issue across North Carolina for a lot of today. I want you to watch how it picks up across the Greenville, North Carolina area, as well as along the Cape, where we could see wind gusts 50 miles per hour.
50 miles per hour. That, look, if there's a tree with weak roots, take it down. So that's something we're certainly concerned about.
Well, torrential downpours are causing some serious problems along the Texas Gulf Coast. South Padre Island under a flash flood watch until at least tomorrow night. Nearby, McAllen Miller International Airport recorded a record-breaking 4.63 inches of rain there just yesterday. But we have some areas, Jen, that have seen much, much more. Padre Island, just outside of Corpus Christi, 3-day rainfall total close to 18 inches.
It's impressive people out here on the beach at South Padre. I mean, I guess, look, if it's your week on vacation, you're going to find any kind of window you can to get out there on the beach. But tremendous rainfall totals. And unfortunately, 8, 12, there was even some reports of close to 18 inches of rain.
And we do expect more, anywhere from 5 to 8 inches of rain for a lot of these areas, still moving in over the next 24 hours. And this atmosphere, it is primed and ready to drop a lot of rain.
You made a good point earlier. We were talking about the outlook from the Hurricane Center, that there is actually, they're watching this area, even though it's overland and it's got a 0% chance of developing. But you think about all the moisture we have in place, very tropical in nature, and the fact that there has been, somewhat of a vortex, a spin to it, overland, but nonetheless, it's causing a lot of rain.
A warm core system, which is what tropical systems are. So this is a very tropical situation over South Texas. It's got the moisture there. We've got the rain streaming in from the Gulf of Mexico and pushing right into Corpus Christi, Victoria, Freeport, where that flash flooding is very likely.
All right, so we're watching this area today. Just saw a new flash flood warning come out down here in Aransas and B counties. So we're watching. Look how it's expanded where the flash flood warnings are. We're watching all this moisture come on shore, but there's that big plume over the Gulf.
Thankfully, that is over the Gulf right now, but eventually it's going to move up into areas like Louisiana and potentially wrap around into Houston.
It's pointed right at Lake Charles, so we'll see how much of that lifts there before it kind of curves around to the west. But unfortunately, this area not looking like it's going to dry out until we get to the weekend.
Well, we do want to move up to the northeast where lightning brightened the sky over Howell, New Jersey. The northeast has gotten several rounds of severe storms like this one over the last week. The storm brought on wind gusts up to 30 miles per hour. As Elsa moves in today, you could see wind gusts stronger than that, especially tomorrow.
Yeah, the thunderstorms are no joke up here. Michigan, Ohio, Indiana, you guys saw that yesterday. You may again today. The Northeast, get ready. We're going to see some trees down because of this too. And I know all attention seems to always be on something with a name, which is Elsa, but look at all these thunderstorms already going at this early hour.
Already a flash flood warning in the tri-state area where we've seen rainfall, lightning, gusty winds. The lightning going to be an issue today as well.
Yes, indeed. That's going to keep you out of the pools for sure. Poughkeepsie, Newburgh, the entire Capital District up here dealing with some heavier rain too as you get up towards Albany. But take a look at this with this flash flood warning. Kingston, New Paltz, and Socrates all under this. This area has just been so saturated from now 2 days in a row of thunderstorms.
And we still have rain moving across Pennsylvania. Pittsburgh was an area that got hit hard yesterday. And look at the more storms moving in, firing up in the heat of the day. There's a lot of heat in the Northeast right now. We've seen heat indices.
Oh, it's been oppressive.
90s to triple digits. It's been feeling gross. And then look at this. Here comes Elsa.
You bring up Elsa right on top of all of that. So with everything so saturated, after now will be 3 days of storms, we bring in a tropical system. Flash flooding concerns tomorrow morning from New Jersey up to the tri-state New York. Get ready. We'll have updates right here on the Weather Channel.
Well.
Yeah, so I feel like Jim Cantori right now, walking around out here in a tropical storm. Elsa has arrived. As you can see, we have got
what a mess.
Doing his own report there in the mess, of course. Many people will be saying something just like this. As Elsa crashes summer plans on the East Coast, the second landfalling tropical system of the year has made quite the mess in Florida and Georgia, and now it has its sights set on the early part of your weekend.
Yeah, we're tracking storm alerts from one end of the I-95 corridor to the other. We're with you here until 1 o'clock. Thanks for staying with us so we can keep you informed. I'm meteorologist Jen Carfagno.
And I'm meteorologist Molly McCullum. Those summer storms, major flooding, and of course Elsa is making for a messy Thursday as you prepare for the weekend.
Yeah, we go from the Tar Heel State to Hampton Roads right up to Beantown. Elsa's going to bring a host of problems as we round out this first full week of July.
But it's not just those beach communities that will get walloped by the wind and the rain. The storm will crash inland parties as it links up with another system moving in from the west. It's the very same system that's been plaguing the Northeast for a couple of days. The center of Elsa is bringing torrential rains to the Carolinas. Power outages are growing in the Carolinas. Right now, nearly 17,000 customers do not have electricity there. Tropical storm warnings extend north into parts of the mid-Atlantic and New England. PSE&G is preparing crews for Elsa's arrival tomorrow as it works to restore power to remaining customers from yesterday's storms. So Jen, Elsa now has been a named storm for 8 days.
Yeah.
That's unusual for July.
It's the most that we've had actually since 2008 to have this many named storm days in the month of July. And so for us here tracking it along the East Coast here, hopefully this doesn't surprise you, but I know if you've been watching us, we've been talking about this now going on a week with this potential to see it go up right the eastern seaboard. And, we're watching, the forecast really on target. It's impressive. I shared on social media just how good the National Hurricane Center's forecast was going back out several days ago, bringing it right up the I-95, seeing these tropical storm force conditions here, and we are looking at all of the concerns. The concerns include the risk for a tornado. Now, we have a tornado watch that goes until 3 o'clock. A watch means conditions are prime for the potential of tornadoes. When there's a warning, there means one is imminent, and we do have a new warning that has been issued. This includes parts of Franklin and Nash County. This is in North Carolina. It includes Castalia, Nashville in North Carolina, and Red Oak. It goes until 12:30. It is radar indicated, but you can see the rotation right in there, just south of Route 64. So this is moving to the north and west, northwest, and we're tracking it move very fast. We're going to time it out for you in Dukes 12:06, Castalia 12:11, Centerville 12:23, and Inez at 12:29. Now, as this tracks up in this direction, know there's a lot of rain. You won't see it coming. Don't look out your window. Just go ahead and get into your safe shelter, interior room. If you have a basement, that's great. If not, an inside closet or bathroom would be the safest place to be. A lot of rain out here, actually, stretching all the way down I-95. I mean, this is a headache of a ride, pretty much from Fayetteville straight north to Virginia. And now in Virginia, we're getting into some of the steadier rain, which is going to make things, I think, pretty complicated when it comes for driving out there. Because with this, we're going to have showers and storms. All the way now, there's outer bands lifting up into the Norfolk area. Virginia Beach, your sky is getting stormy. Roanoke and Travel in 81, we are getting into some rain and storms, all because of the circulation from Elsa. It's a big circulation. The tropical storm force conditions actually extend out 115 miles from the center, and a lot of it on the eastern side is where we're getting the bulk of it. I want to show you where we got these outer bands. That's what you got to watch for this potential of tornadoes, but also for some of the heaviest of rain as we're just kind of cranking in all that Atlantic moisture. All right, Molly, let's get into some specifics about what comes next.
We've had a lot of storm reports, Jen, and we can actually track Elsa as it moves from Key West all the way across the Gulf Coast of Florida, across Jacksonville, producing those gusty winds, some surge reports, as well as some tornado reports, especially across the Jacksonville area and continuing up into the Georgia and South Carolina coast. Some of the wind gusts have been very, very impressive, and that does include one of the more recent ones near Hilton Head Island. Look at this. 81 miles per hour. And typically, this is an area that you really don't see wind like that. It's very calm across Hilton Head Island in South Carolina. So to see that kind of wind, that's extremely impressive. But you do see those stronger winds typically on the coast where you have less friction over the water than you do over land with the buildings and the trees. It just allows those winds to pick up and slam into those coastal areas. The footprint of rain, Key West, especially Fort Myers, Tampa, Jacksonville, you can pretty much follow Elsa as it's moved across these areas with more of the heavy rain on the eastern side of this. And that does include Fort Myers, Sanibel, Port Charlotte, and Punta Gorda seeing our highest rainfall amount with just over 11 inches of rain. You actually set a daily record rainfall in Gainesville, Florida, as this passed through. So here's the latest on Elsa. The pressure up a little bit, as well as the speed is up, and the sustained winds, 45 miles per hour, pushing across Raleigh right now. Raleigh, you're really in the worst of it. Things will improve later in the day, but Richmond, as well as portions of Virginia, you are up next. And this is where Elsa is on satellite right now. You can see that swirl pushing across Charlotte into Raleigh, with a lot of this storm centered across the Carolina coast, with some strong winds gusting to 40 right now in Myrtle Beach. So those tropical storm conditions are expected tonight in Virginia, where coastal communities are putting the final touches on preps for Elsa. And this includes Virginia Beach, which right now under a tropical storm warning. We're joined live by Drew Langford, Media and Communications with the City Department of Public Works. So thank you so much, Drew, for joining us again this hour. Elsa will be the Virginia Beach's first brush with tropical weather this season. So what are your crews focusing in on the hours ahead, the last few hours before Elsa moves in?
Well, we got started earlier in the week. We've had crews going out checking most of the trouble areas that are prone to flooding. We've had additional crews out cleaning ditches, doing vacuuming storm drains. So we did a lot as far as having crews out going to trouble spots. The last 24 to 48 hours, we've also had our maintenance crews. They've already started loading trucks with high water signs. We've got another crew that'll be on call all night. We have gone and checked some of the neighborhoods that are most prone to flooding, and people that have made them a priority from people that have called with complaints.
So you mentioned those trouble spots, those problem spots. Which ones are you focusing on? Because I know the people who live in Virginia Beach, they're probably very accustomed to these trouble spots. But what about the people vacationing? They may not know where the waters rise very quickly.
Well, if they're vacationing here, that's not, I mean, there could be a chance, I think, more with wind than anything and high tide. But a lot of the trouble spots are going to be around the area, the Shore Drive area, which runs parallel to Chesapeake Bay. And then we have a southern part of our city that runs right up to the North Carolina line. Very low lying. It's a real confluence there of the Albemarle Sound, Currituck Sound, Back Bay. So if the winds come in strongly from the south, we could have a fair amount of flooding down there, and it doesn't even have to rain, just the southern winds with all that area.
That's a good point with those southern winds, too. You're also going to get some rip currents off the coast. So Virginia Beach, beautiful beach. How is your city preparing for the beaches as Elsa starts to move in?
Well, we're keeping an eye on the storm today. We took a few precautionary measures yesterday. We went to work sites, made sure everything was tied down. We've been looking at the beach, and we're going to probably do another run through this afternoon. If the winds look like they're going to be stronger than we anticipate, we'll probably take care of a few things on the ocean front, on the beach itself, and take in trash cans, tie down what needs to be tied down. Right now, looks like if the forecast holds out, we'll get a fair amount of rain. In fact, it's just started raining here. We'll get a fair amount of rain and a lot of wind, but a lot of times when you have them in combination, that can be a real problem.
Well, Elsa, just starting to move in now, you mentioned that the rain is just starting to fall. What is some of your last-minute advice for how residents can be ready both before, I guess that's now, and after the storm?
Well, like I said, as far as wind and rain, we have a concern about trees falling. A lot of times when that's a problem, you have power outages. So the basic advice we always tell people as far as getting the supplies you need, including flashlights, batteries, have things ready, some kind of kit. We also ask people, once the storm starts coming in, if you don't have to be on the road, stay off, because we have a lot of crews getting around, and the less traffic that's out there, the better for us.
Well, so many beautiful trees in Virginia, and of course they can come down so easily, as you mentioned. Drew Langford, Media Communications with the Virginia Beach Department of Public Works. Thank you so much for joining us this hour and last hour, too. Elsa is spawning storms across the First Coast as a water spout churns off the coast of Jacksonville, Florida. You can see the spout in the distance dipping down into the water. I'm honestly surprised, Jen, that you're able to see this because the rain is so intense when these come through that typically you cannot see them, but you can see it right out that window there. And this person is smart, taking it from inside as opposed to outside.
And things could change so rapidly, actually. And we had a number of tornado reports yesterday across northeastern Florida, the First Coast right there, Jacksonville area, and inland just a little bit too, and also in southeast Georgia. So there was at least 5 reports of tornadoes. There'll be surveys done today and probably likely tomorrow too. Again, very busy across this area too. But one area hit was an RV park. There was some injuries, unfortunately. So I want to continue to urge caution when we do have these tornado warnings like we have right now. Actually, there is one that is just to the west of I-95. Let's look at the whole area under a watch, because first and foremost, when you're under a watch, that means that conditions are ripe for tornadoes, and you're watching that right front quadrant. When you have a system, a tropical system that's on land, that's the area that's most prone to it. So then you get a warning once the threat is imminent. When you have a warning, that's when you need to go into your shelter. Today we're watching for that zone, and Wilmington, Myrtle Beach, you've got improved weather. This area, though, up to the north, Norfolk, we're in that, extreme outer fringes of it. The Virginia Beach area where the rain is just beginning, you're in the outer fringes for now. The weather will get worse before it gets better, and we do have a 3 on the Torcon across this area. So I want to time this out and take it up to the north, because we are going to be watching for this one in particular band here that extends out to the Atlantic Ocean. Watching this bringing a lot of the rain, but also we'll see cells within that with that potential for rotation as we get into the later afternoon hours. By tonight, it's out of here and much improved weather for you tomorrow morning by the time you come across this area. Quick look, though, those winds changing with height is why we do have that risk across this area for tornadoes. And it's a very classic situation, actually, when it comes to a tropical landfall. Mostly very short-lived, very weak, but they can spin up fast. You just need to be ready for getting those warnings. All right, let's focus in on the Carolinas and some of that rainfall, Molly.
Well, Jen, if the wind and the tornado spin-ups weren't enough, we have to focus on the water now. Tropical systems drop a lot of water, and Elsa is no exception, where we have a flash flood watch in areas like Raleigh up to Richmond, Virginia, even extending into Baltimore and Ocean City, Maryland. This is the center of Elsa, so this is the cone. You always have to remember that the cone is tracking the center of the storm, and the impacts well outside of that, especially on the eastern side. So the center tracking right over Raleigh, right across the Virginia area, and this is going to pull a lot of rain just to the east of Raleigh into the coast. 3 to 5 inches of rain just on the outside of Raleigh on the North Carolina-Virginia border. We could see some isolated amounts higher than that, though, where we see repeated heavy rainfall. We call that training of thunderstorms, where we start to see the lightning. Those rainfall rates typically go up big time. Wind gusts also an issue, so Myrtle Beach gusting close to 40 miles per hour right now. That will continue up Wilmington, even into Greenville, North Carolina. Those wind speeds picking up significantly over the next couple of hours. That is going to make for a treacherous ride home. Hatteras Cave, this is 8 p.m. this evening, 40 to 50 miles per hour, and that extends up into the Norfolk area where you could see those really, really gusty winds as Elsa passes through. This is going to pick up speed, though, and move out by Friday morning. You'll start to see some improvements. Where we will not see improvements is on the beaches. Even after Elsa moves through, some really strong onshore flow getting pulled up. And of course, as Elsa passes, it's going to churn up a lot of that water, and it's going to be rough surf for a couple of days. Not great to get out in the water. Savannah, Charleston, Wilmington, give it a couple of days. Allow the water to calm down a little bit in some of those rip currents. Charlotte, the worst is over for you right now, but you could see some showers on the backside of this as we get into the evening time frame, anywhere from about 6 to 9 p.m. this evening. Raleigh in the thick of it right now, but this will continue to improve over the next couple of hours as this lifts up the I-95 corridor, and the same deal as what we saw in Charlotte, some wraparound showers possible on the backside of this. But Raleigh, you are almost done. Jen, where we are not almost done is the Northeast, where it's about to start.
Yeah, well, and actually we're going to get a couple of different types of weather, because first we get into the thunderstorms like we've had the last 2 nights, and then we get into the Elsa rain. Flood watch is up, flash flood watch is up, I should say, because of that. And Boston, just checking your totals of where you are this month, because it's been rainy, but it's even rainier than I thought, and I keep tabs on it. you've had more than 5 inches of rain. That's 4 inches of rain above average. So it has been a wet start to July, and here comes more. So first of all, we're going to start the clock. This is 1 a.m. overnight tonight, and knowing that we're going to be getting some showers and storms later this evening. But then tomorrow morning you wake up and all this rain is lifting north through New Jersey, right along the Garden State Parkway, getting into New York City area for tomorrow morning. A mess of a commute. The entire tri-state is going to be inundated with heavy rainfall. All roads leading into New York City, all airports are going to be dealing with the rain tomorrow morning as well. And then this is all lifting up towards southern New England too, including Boston and down through Providence and Rhode Island. We've got some heavy rain coming your way, sticking with us through the later morning and early afternoon hours, and then lifting up into Maine. All right, so that's what's happening in the Northeast as we get to tomorrow. Molly, what's the latest on the radar right now?
Tornado warning. This is breaking right now for portions of North Carolina. This is in the Greenville area. We want to zoom into this latest tornado warning, and this extends until 12:45 local time. So if you live in Snow Hill, that circulation is just to the north of you, pushing towards the Farmville area into Spites Bridge. If you live anywhere in this red area, go ahead and take those tornado precautions. It looks like that area, that circulation, the rotation is right over US 13 right now. Do not get out and travel. Just give it a few minutes to pass. This is timing this out. We're looking at Farmville, 12:23, Fountain, 12:21 local time, Saratoga, 12:33, and this will continue into the Rocky Mount area if it does hold together. An additional warning for Franklin and Nash counties until 12:30 Eastern time.
When you order carryout, there's a
It seemed like a normal day.
I looked up at the sky and I seen the darkness coming.
I got an alert on my phone, and then all hell broke loose. Cold.
It was complete chaos. Go, go! There's no way you can outrun it.
If Mother Nature gives you a warning sign, get ready for something big.
I have never seen anything like that.
I had no idea what had just happened.
You just hang on for dear life and hope for the best.
I want to get you right to some breaking news in North Carolina right now, where we're watching 2 tornado warnings. This is on the east side of Tropical Storm Elsa. Zooming in a little bit closer, we want to talk about these specifically, where they are and where they're moving. We'll start with the southern one. This is in portions of Greene as well as Pitt County, moving towards Farmville. Snow Hill, this area, the circulation is just to the north of you. Also, if you live in the Fountain area, this is coming your way. Walstenburg, you're also in the Polygon, and quite the impressive signature on there just to the east of Spites Bridge, moving over US 13, passing over US 264 very soon here. Timing this out in Fountain around 12:30. Driver's Store, 12:39, and eventually pushing into Elm City around 12:53 if this holds together. That green color, that's the winds pushing towards the radar, and the red away, you get those opposing motions, and of course, that's where you get those spin ups. So we're watching that very closely. Let's head to the northern one, another tornado warning with another impressive signature. This is for Franklin and Nash County, so the city of Centerville. You want to be very careful with this storm as this is headed pretty much right in your direction, right across the area of Castalia. That's where we're watching that rotation. This is not nearly as impressive as the one to the south, but still seeing some broad rotation in there just to the east of Castalia. That's where we're watching this one area. So anywhere in this polygon, you do want to take your tornado precautions very seriously, because these do spin up quickly. You will not see them coming, and it's possible we could see more as we go throughout the afternoon. And if you you live in the Northeast, you want to be prepared because this is all part of Tropical Storm Elsa, and it will be headed your way. It's going to be a stormy couple of days in the Northeast, where crews are still clearing out debris and damage from severe storms this week, and more are on the way today before Elsa arrives. Both Baltimore and New York City face flash flood watches today. So, Jen, let's get the timing on this, because that's everything.
Yeah, I know. And oh, they're so hot and hazy and humid right now, too. We've got temperatures in the 80s. Maybe not as hot as we've been the last 2 days, but we're definitely feeling the stickiness out here. Dew points up in the 70s. And we got tropical air coming our way. So I want to time this out and show you where it's tracking along the I-95. Travelers, this is for you. I know a lot of folks are hitting the road, and we are going to watch right around the Baltimore and D.C. area, a couple of showers and storms popping, non-related to Elsa. This is just, we're into the summertime storms up here today. Then we get into some of the moisture as we get into this evening. So this is 8 o'clock. You can see that edge of it right out here. A lot of it tracks just off to our east. And so for us in Baltimore and D.C., where I think we're going to escape the worst of the heavy rainfall, that is not going to be the case, though, on I-95 everywhere in the Northeast. We'll jump up to Philly, where we'll be in those scattered showers, those summer storms this afternoon and early evening. Then we get into the moisture from Elsa coming up here. And this rain, it will be heavy at times overnight. Look at all of this coming on in. So I-95 and then traveling in Jersey, whether it's Atlantic City Expressway heading out there or in the Garden State Parkway, going to be a mess with heavy rain through the overnight. Now, it's somewhat good news, right? Because most of you are sleeping during that time, and during the morning, things will be improving pretty quickly. Although New York City, the morning is going to be the worst timing for us. It's about 6 a.m. when we get everything coming together. Although this does not look good, right? This is not a good look for these nasty storms coming in yet again for the third night in a row here through the Northeast, up into Connecticut, Stafford area, a lot of trees down. That could happen again with these storms that blast on through. And then we get into the Elsa rain. This is tomorrow morning, 6 a.m. Look at all roads wet leading in and out of the tri-state through at least early afternoon. And then another round of scattered showers and storms may pop again, unrelated to the tropical system, but just know that we have a very active time of it coming our way here across this area. Boston, too, is another one that we have to look at, Molly.
Well, we do want to talk about the big picture, Jen, because there's a couple of factors at play here. When it comes to the Midwest and the Northeast, of course, we have Elsa. You just heard Jen talking about that. But also, this is a front. You can see this on water vapor. It's splitting the difference between Chicago all the way down to Cincinnati and pushing very quickly to the east. And this is where it's firing up once again. Showers and storms, even this morning. It's been a rough morning in Indianapolis with a lot of lightning, some of those gusty winds, torrential downpours. Also, a strong storm pushing through Cleveland right now. A lot of lightning just to the west of Cleveland. All of that is moving in. And of course, we're continuing to watch the tri-state area in portions of New York, where we have a flash flood warning, repeated heavy rainfall. That's going to be the name of the game for the next couple of days. You've already seen a couple of days of thunderstorms. At this point, any additional rain that falls, it's falling on saturated soil. When that happens, it immediately becomes runoff. Where does that water go? Typically, it happens to flow out onto the roadways, making driving very dangerous. Storms firing up across Pennsylvania, up into Scranton today, and then here comes Elsa later this evening through the Washington, D.C. area, late tonight blowing through Philly as well as New York City. Early tomorrow morning, and behind that we still have some ongoing rain for the Pittsburgh area. We are very concerned about the flash flooding, not only across the tri-state area, New York, up into portions of Connecticut, but also anywhere across the Northeast. Have to be careful today, and those possible thunderstorms firing up right now, that will continue into the afternoon, and we'll keep you updated right here on the Weather Channel. From yesterday's thunderstorms,
I know,
and the day before that, I mean, you can't catch a break.
That's the thing. We've had 2 nasty days of severe weather, really from Michigan, Ohio, Indiana, and then all the way to the Northeast. And now we bring in the tropical moisture, so there's a lot to get to. Thanks for trusting us here at the Weather Channel to get you through the midday hours as we track Elsa and several other threats across America.
It's the first week of July, if you can believe that, with how intense it's been so far.
It feels like September, honestly.
It feels like it's really late, but it's been a busy start, and Elsa leaving quite a bit of destruction in its trek up the eastern seaboard. Massive RVs were flipped over at Kings Bay Base in Georgia yesterday. RVs, mobile homes, unacred homes, never a good place to be in when a tornado comes through. In Jacksonville, Florida, a possible tornado tore through, leaving a trail of destruction behind. And there are reports of tree limbs down in several states now, and probably more to come.
Yeah, you know, we're watching for, unfortunately, the rainfall still heavy at times. The winds are still gusty, but that threat of tornadoes still there, and that's really what causes the kind of damage like you saw, right? So let's look at first the big scale picture with the wind. Myrtle Beach, we are still gusty, 37 miles per hour.
It's been like that for several hours now.
Since after midnight.
To near 40. And that's the fact that Elsa, the center of it, is to your north now. But we can see that along a lot of the coast as Elsa lifts out, the winds will probably pick up. Tornado watch in effect for areas in North Carolina. This is where we're seeing some active tornado warnings right now. And that does include just to the north of Kingston. We've been watching this one area, Farmville, Fountain, as well as Spites Bridge, under that tornado warning until 12:45 local time.
All right, let's take a look at the velocity. At the moment, yeah, right in there. You see that where we have that reflectivity with a little gray popping in, where we just have a little change in the wind compared to where it was coming from. And so that's going to be the spot to watch. It's a small area, right? And that is the thing about tropical tornadoes is they're usually small in nature. They're usually quick. Most of the time they're weak, although they can be stronger. And I believe it was in North Carolina 2 years ago that we had one that was actually an EF3.
They can become very strong.
So, I mean, you got to just be prepared for everything, right? Which is why you seek shelter when you're under a warning.
And anywhere along this area, Farmville 1224, Fountain 1234, up into the Mercer area 1259, and eventually into Sharpsburg if it does hold together a little bit later than that. On top
looks like they've extended north of there.
And it's because that area, as you were pointing out on the velocity, is a little bit tighter right now, and it has maintains its intensity so far. So we're extending this tornado warning to 1 p.m. into areas like Edgecombe as well as into the Wilson area. It's observed.
So it's observed. Matt, do you know if it's observed on the correlation coefficient? Or is there an update on that warning? Let's take a look. Let's see. Overall, so what we're looking for here, the correlation coefficient shows us if there's anything different other than rain being shown and if there's debris, right? And so nothing's popping out. You usually match up, if you can match up the velocity signature with something on the correlation coefficient, then that would be a radar observed tornado. So I'm guessing from this warning, because I haven't been able to look at it, that it is most likely, or that's it right there.
Oh, wow. Okay,
yeah, there it is. There it is. Okay, south of McLeesfield. So this is a radar observed confirmation on this.
And when you start to see this, that means the tornado has hit something and it's now lofting some of that debris into the air. So Edgecombe, Wilson counties, because this is now an observed indication that we have seen this, you want to get into your safe spot. You want to take those tornado precautions. This will rip through very quickly.
This circulation is moving to the north and is moving at about 30-35 miles per hour. So we're watching within the zone a lot of heavy rainfall. You're also watching just an ambient windy conditions, right? But then there is the debris as spotted on radar. And you were tracking it off to the north, a little bit to the west of north. We're tracking this towards McLeesfield. 1239, Pine Tops, 1244, Bullock's Crossroads, 1258, and then taking it outside, other warning, but to Rocky Mount, 108 if it holds together.
And the thing that scares me, Jen, is that this looks like it started to get that debris signature right as it crossed US 264.
Looks like there's another one that just popped up just to the east of there, just east of Farmville. So we are seeing this outer band starting to rotate. Yes. All right, so this one, Belvoir, Farmville, and Fountain goes until 1 o'clock local time.
And let's take a look at the velocity on this and see if we can see any indication. There you go, right outside of Farmville. To the east of Farmville, we are starting to see those opposing colors, the greens and the reds together. And then at the additional one just to the north of 264, that's moving to the north as well.
So this is the one confirmed on radar with debris. This other rotation right here to the east of Farmville, as indicated, rotation. Make sure you get into your safe shelter immediately.
We want to get you to the latest breaking news where we have several tornado warnings in North Carolina right now. One of them, an observed tornado. So we want to get straight to that one. This is near the Pine Tops area. So we're talking about Macclesfield as well as Pine Tops in Edgecombe and Wilson counties. 1 p.m. is until this warning goes to. So you want to pay close attention and you want to take those tornado precautions because we have seen some indications that debris is being lofted into the air. And that's always an indication that potentially the tornado has hit something.
That's right. So this is observed by Doppler radar. The correlation coefficient is a piece of data that we use to see is there debris in the atmosphere, something other than raindrops. And yes, indeed, that yellow spot that you see there just north of Spites Bridge here, well north actually, just to the west of Fountain. In that area, that's where the debris was observed based on what the correlation coefficient is showing us. And so this area is tracking to the north. We're tracking it north, heading up towards crossing over Aspen Grove Church Road and then eventually Webb's Chapel Road.
And this is, again, observed. So if you are in this area, get to your safe spot. This still has a ways to go for this warning. And extending this out, Macclesfield definitely want to be in your safe place. That's just to the north of Webb's Chapel Road, and eventually pushing just to the west of Pine Tops. This is not the only warning that we have out there right now. We want to go to the one just to the east of that. And that's where we're seeing another area of rotation just to the east of Farmville. That tornado warning for Greene and Pitt County until also 1 p.m. local time. This is radar indicated. No sign so far that this has hit something, but just as what we saw with the other one, Jen, it only takes a second.
It's certainly a tight circulation that we see on the radar velocity, indicating that rotation. And so we track this up to the north, and we can time it out for you, watching this as it goes through parts of Greene and Pitt counties, cities like Fountain and Cobbtown. You're within this warning. We're tracking the circulation, and we're watching this move to the northwest at about 30 to 35 miles per hour. So it is moving along very quickly. So if you're in this warning, we want to make sure that you are in your safe shelter so that you are not at risk, because this will be moving fast.
And also in North Carolina, we want to keep our eyes on this tornado warning just to the north, because again, this has been observed. At that point, you have to get into your safe spot. Macclesfield, you're up next. And zooming in a little bit closer, eventually Rocky Mount, you are not in this warning, but I would go ahead and take those tornado precautions, get into that safe spot, the lowest level of your house, away from those exterior windows, doors, and walls, because this is a tight area of circulation. This is repeatedly look impressive on velocity with those reds and those greens very close together, pushing towards Webb's Chapel Road, eventually into Macclesfield, 1247, and St. Louis, North Carolina, 1251. Very dangerous storm.
Yeah, we're tracking this on the move, and it's embedded within an area of heavy rain as well as generally windy. And, you know, just because we have a tropical system moving through. So it is going to be distracting in general with the kind of weather we have here. So if you are alerted that you are under this warning, want to make sure that you are getting into your safe shelter, interior room, putting as many walls and windows between you and the outside as possible. If you have a basement, that is always the safest place to be. But if you don't, an inside bathroom or closet are the safer places to be. Now, let's track this. You can see, again, all of this rain here. And let's take a look at that debris signature. This is the correlation coefficient, allows us to track any debris. Looks like just to the west of Macclesfield here near the Shallington's Mill Road area, 111. In that zone is where there is some debris that is being spotted based on Doppler radar.
And just to give you a little perspective about where this is in the state of North Carolina, this is about halfway between the city of Raleigh as well as Greenville, North Carolina. So right in the middle of that, right in some of the eastern bands of Tropical Storm Elsa, that's where we're watching these areas really start to spin. You got the spin of the whole system, and then you've got these tiny circulations, these tiny areas spinning. Edgecombe, Wilson counties, this is a tornado warning for you until 1 p.m. local time. So you still got quite a bit of this warning left and quite a bit of time that you need to be into that safe spot. Zooming in a little bit closer, if we can take another look at velocity, just so we can get an idea of what this rotation looks like. It doesn't look nearly as impressive as it did.
This is very typical of tornadoes within tropical systems, is that they spin up, they spin down, they evolve very quickly. Things happen in between radar scans. And so you just need to be paying attention. And obviously, if you're in a warning, you need to be in your shelter and just, you know, watching the weather today. That other circulation, though, is still staying together, the one that is just to the north and east of Farmville here. And that warning, watching that area of rotation, that warning remains in effect until 1 o'clock local time. Belvoir, Farmville, Fountain, all in that. You know, if we give you a sense of the broad view of what we're dealing with here. So there's this one band embedded within all of the rain, and we can zoom out and show you, sort of the extent of what's happening with these tornado warnings. That is lifting north, and it's, you know, heading and rotating towards the Rocky Mount area. You're not under a warning there in Rocky Mount, but we're going to keep close watch on that. And you know, certainly I-95 travelers here. At the moment, there are no warnings on I-95, but this is a tough area to be driving through right now.
And a lot of times when you start to see these areas spin up, it's very likely that we'll see a few more. We're getting into the afternoon. We're getting a little extra oomph from the atmosphere, and that really will get things going. We want to keep tabs on this, though. Rocky Mount, again, you're not in the warning, but this is headed in your direction. And if you're in near the area of Farmville, we also have a warning for you as well. We want to bring you the latest on tornado warnings in North Carolina. Right now, the observed tornado near the Pine Tops area, that warning has been allowed to expire, but we do want to zoom into the warning still ongoing. This is for just to the north of the Farmville area, Greene and Pitts County. But Jen, this area of rotation is about to move out of this warning, potentially right into the Pine Tops area again.
So watching this area as indicated by velocity, so you can see where the rotation is, and it's on this latest scan, not as evident actually right there, but just at the northern part of that warned area, and it's going to move north and just close actually to Pine Tops. So even though you're not under a warning at this time, pay attention. We'll see if another one gets issued if this is holding it together. This is within a whole area that is under a tornado watch until 3 o'clock this afternoon.
And Elsa continues to spin across North Carolina right now and bringing a lot of rain. Of course, those spin-up tornadoes, wind, another factor too.
Yes, broad scale look at this. Huge. Because from Roanoke, Virginia to Virginia Beach and now north of there, we've got the outer fringes of this rain continuing. And even Wilmington, you know, you had gotten a nice break from all of your rain, but we're back into a few showers before all is said and done. Flash
flood watch out for many of these areas along I-95 due to the torrential tropical downpours. They're going to move in. On top of that, we have the wind and the spin-ups, and then the impacts felt well outside the center of this, especially along the North Carolina coast.
So it's been picking up speed. Elsa's now moving at 20 miles per hour, and that probably will accelerate even more as it moves to the north and east. But that's not going to change the moisture that it's bringing with it and the potential that is there for having these really big rainfall rates. And that's what's going to bring the flash flooding concerns. If you get an inch or two an hour, if you get up into the New York City area, if you get 2 or 3 inches in 3 hours, that could cause some problems.
And that's falling on saturated soil up there. The wind, Wilmington, 40 to 50 miles per hour over the next few hours. Moving into Hatteras, the Hatteras Cape, anywhere along coastal North Carolina, the winds are really going to be ripping through. By tomorrow morning, it'll slowly start to calm down, but the beaches not going to be great for the next couple of days.
Just saw a report down at Tybee Island, actually, in Georgia, that there's some rip currents off of the 7th Avenue or 7th Street beaches where the island makes a turn. So, look, that's going to be the case up and down this area of coastline here. A lot of beaches closed for swimming in here. Make sure you pay attention to those warnings.
Well, now we need to go to the Texas Gulf Coast because we have seen torrential downpours causing some serious problems. South Padre Island, this is where you're looking at right now. Look at some of that water. I mean, I can't believe people are still out here.
Yeah, I mean, we've had a lot of rain, but if you're on vacation and you got a couple of hours or window here of beach time, you're going to take it, right? Let's show you how much rain that we have had because it has been tremendous, and there's a lot of flooding happening. Actually, up from there to Corpus Christi, and especially South Corpus Christi, roads are closed, intersections inundated. We've had more than a foot of rainfall.
And some places, Padre Island just outside of Corpus Christi, close to 18 inches of rain in just 3 days, and expecting more.
All right, so this is what's expected to come. The moisture in the atmosphere here is really top of the charts. So it's tropical moisture, I mean, just like we see over with our tropical system. In fact, this might even be higher. The problem, or not the problem, but the factor is that the circulation is over land. So we're not talking about a tropical system making all this rain. It's just tropical moisture in place.
But it just brings the point that a storm doesn't need a name to be a really big deal. And this one is not named, but still bringing a lot of problems to Freeport, Victoria, down to Corpus Christi. Flooding is very likely all the way through tomorrow morning because it is still raining in these areas and there's more rain still to come.
You can get a sense for the circulation bringing in the moisture off the Gulf of Mexico. We have this big plume of moisture right here.
This is enormous.
We'll see if this makes the turn or if it goes into Louisiana because right now they're not in that flood risk. But if we get that inundation of rainfall, that would be a problem.
And it's areas from New Orleans, Lake Charles, Houston, all the way down to Brownsville that have seen repeated heavy rainfall events so far this year, and that is sparking quite a few problems across the Corpus Christi area, into Victoria, all the way up to Freeport, where we still have continual heavy rain. Corpus Christi getting a little bit of a break right now.
Well, but streams and creeks are up. So like the Oso Creek is one of the spots we're watching, and that's getting up to potentially major flood stage, and it's almost there. And so the concern is even though the rain might be taking a break at this time, the rivers, the streams, the creeks are still rising.
It takes some time for that water to fall. Well, some storms like this coming into the Northeast with an incredible bolt of lightning struck the One World Trade Center. More than 30,000 people still awaiting for the electricity to be restored in New York State. That is some lightning right there.
What a capture, Anthony Quintano. Thank you for that, man. All right, multiple times. It happens. Don't say lightning doesn't strike twice. It does.
And maybe even
a third time because we have more storms tonight.
Well, we do have that front pushing through. It's going to be this front that is responsible for drawing up Elsa right into areas like New York City.
That's just little pops of energy coming in. So, guys, get ready again. I know what a mess it was in lower Michigan yesterday. We could have more storms coming your way. Pittsburgh already, some showers out there. Look at this line of storms. Cleveland,
Columbus,
extending back to Columbus, Ohio.
The tri-state area have to watch out for flash flooding, especially super saturated soil, a lot of lightning, and Elsa is up next.
And then Elsa comes up. Continuing coverage right here on the Weather Channel. Stay with us. You can always check us out on Roku.
This is Elsa, Tropical Storm Elsa racing up the East Coast after lashing parts of South Carolina early this morning with gusty winds and heavy rain. Elsa now moving through North Carolina. Heavy rain already spreading from the Outer Banks to well inland.
But the Carolinas won't be Elsa's last stop. By tonight, it's expected to work its way into the Northeast, bringing with it the heavy rain and the tropical storm force winds. And much of the area is storm weary after rounds of severe weather have already been happening throughout this past few days.
The good news, though, Elsa should be out of here by the weekend, but there's still a lot to get through between now and then with this tropical storm. Still a tropical storm here, which we're tracking Elsa on the Weather Channel. Meteorologist Chris Warren, and we're taking a look at where the storm is right now. Still a 45-mile-an-hour tropical storm that is moving into and through North Carolina at the moment with quite a bit of heavy rain. That tornado threat is still with us at the moment. Tropical storm conditions expected from really as far south as Myrtle Beach all the way up to New England. That's these red areas here, tropical storm warning. So that's where you can expect tropical storm conditions. This red outlined area, that's a tornado warning, which we've been seeing with this storm ever since it made landfall in Florida. We see spin-ups usually on the east or northeast side of the storm, and it's been living up to that, unfortunately, with tornadoes remaining a possibility. This tornado warning means there's a tornado ongoing right now for portions of Greene and Pitt County outside of Greenville, North Carolina. And that tornado watch, so warning means something's in progress or it's about to be. Tornado would be in progress or about to start happening. Otherwise, tornado watch means that conditions are favorable. And we're here on the east, kind of northeast side of the storm, and that's where conditions are favorable. So the tropical storm here that we're watching bring some of these stronger winds here. Wind gusts, Myrtle Beach, lately up to almost 40 miles an hour, 37, 39 mile an hour. Wind gusts reported in Wilmington, and we can expect more strong winds into the Outer Banks as well as this storm continues its movement to the north. Also Raleigh, you're going to be in for more heavy rain and expecting the winds also to pick up as well. And then throughout parts of Virginia, Norfolk to Williamsburg, and of course out to the coast, Virginia Beach, and then down to the Outer Banks of North Carolina. Still expecting more of the worst of the weather in the short term before this system works its way up and into the Northeast. So seeing some of that heavy rain, here's the forecast. The forecast does keep it a tropical storm and even strengthen it as it deals with a little bit of energy, a little bit higher up in the atmosphere. That's going to actually help keep it a little bit stronger for a little bit longer, and even see some of these winds sustained potentially around 50 miles an hour as the storm goes offshore. There's still a chance it can go on the inside route, but there's more of a likelihood that it'll be somewhere in here as it races through the Northeast. Now, Tropical Storm Elsa swept across South Carolina this morning, and the Weather Channel's Jackie Jarris was there and filed this report from Myrtle Beach.
The worst of the conditions from Tropical Storm Elsa now over in Myrtle Beach, but still gusty conditions through the rest of the afternoon. It was a wild ride this morning where we had wind gusts up to 54 miles per hour, more than an inch of rainfall, and even a tornado warning. But very quickly, they're trying to get back to business here in Myrtle Beach. Of course, tourism, huge part of the economy here. And we've got thousands of people from other parts of the country trying to enjoy their beach vacation. Now, one of the problems is we've got double red flags that are flying, indicating that the waters are closed. So as conditions continue to improve here, here. It will be a nice day to get outside with breaks in the cloud cover, but the danger is going to be remaining in the water out here. We've still got a high risk of rip currents and very rough surf, so you can get out here and enjoy the beach, walk along the beach, have a good time with your family, just don't get into the water. And that's going to be the case now, we think, for the next 2 days, at least through your Friday.
Two perspectives of the situation here in Charleston, South Carolina. Officially, Tropical Storm Elsa dropped 3.6 inches of rain in the city, but the outlying areas also seen significantly high totals as well. The result was quite predictable for a city that is prone to flooding. Police having to close several streets right before dawn, and they have since reopened. All right, heavy rain and brisk winds along the Virginia coast. We're up near Hampton Roads as Elsa is moving northward. Wind speeds are going to be picking up as we go through this afternoon and tonight, and there is the possibility here for brief tornadoes to spin up. The region under a flash flood watch. That flash flood watch goes through tomorrow, so we're still expecting heavy rain as we head into this evening and into early parts of tomorrow. But here is a look at the tropical storm warnings. It stretches right through Myrtle Beach up to Wilmington and through the eastern part of North Carolina. As we look in a little bit closer, we see the Outer Banks and right into the Hampton Roads area underneath that tropical storm warning. Again, we're having gusty winds and a lot of heavy rainfall from this. And we'll continue to see more of that with some isolated tornadoes possible as we go through the afternoon. So again, as Tropical Storm Elsa moves through parts of North Carolina, rain is going to be a huge concern for this area. Heavy rain and flash flood watches have been issued, and we'll continue to watch this as we go through the afternoon and tonight. This storm, though, it's going to be on the move late tonight. Let's find out where by going over to Chris again.
And we can see from the mid-Atlantic and parts of the southeast, of course, the next stop is going to be the northeast. So New York City and Long Island, you're going to start to feel and see some of the effects of the storm later on tonight and into early tomorrow morning, and then it's going to continue off into New England as well. So the heavy rain is going to be an issue, flash flooding there, and that threat will extend from where it is right now all the way through the Delmarva, so parts of eastern Maryland, most of Delaware, much of at least coastal New Jersey, Long Island, Connecticut, Rhode Island, and then of course eastern Mass will potentially see some of the stronger winds, heavier rain, as tropical storm warnings are posted for these areas. Again, a lot of the areas that are facing facing out over the ocean with that wind coming and whipping right at you, that is going to be the concern here. Again, from Maryland and Delaware and Virginia all the way up through New Jersey into New York, Connecticut, Rhode Island, and Massachusetts as well. So here's what's going on. So here's where Elsa is. The high pressure, and this high is kind of what helped it zip along initially into and through the Caribbean. Now as it's going up, it's going to help it turn in this direction, kind of steer it a little bit, and so will the jet stream. But the jet stream, and a little bit higher up in the atmosphere, has another little role to play as well, and that's to give it a little extra boost. So winds actually expected to get a little bit stronger with this storm as it approaches this area right here. And we're going to see a cold front sweeping through as well. So it's not going to linger. That's just not going to happen. You got plenty of things that will help take this out of here. But we could be dealing with kind of a 1-2 punch, if you will, as we watch the moisture associated with the storm. Again, this came all the way from deep into the Atlantic. It went through the Caribbean. There were some tropical areas dragging up a lot of tropical moisture. That high is helping to steer some of that moisture up as well. And these upper level winds, as they dip down, again, helping to give this a little bit of extra oomph to it, if you will, but also helping to kick it out of here. And once that happens, hopefully we'll take a little breather here, because it's been some rough times in the Northeast because of the severe weather the past few days. And here's the storm. This is now tonight. It's a wet night here. Look at New Jersey. Almost the entire state is going to be moderate to even heavy rain at times. And then by 8 o'clock in the morning, the high-resolution future radar shows some of the heaviest rain going all the way up just about to Albany, New York. So while heavy rain is going to be widespread. I think some of the strongest winds are going to be more coastal and maybe a county or two inland. Again, this really depends on the track as well. This particular high-resolution future radar taking it right along the coast before it finally gets out of here. There's that number 2 punch, right? So we saw the storm leave much of the northeast, but then as that cold front sweeps through, some additional storms will be possible at late night. So the weather threats don't end with Elsa, but Elsa's threats will end as Elsa moves on here. So again, the forecast, the worst of it from Elsa, again in the morning for much of the northeast, but again, then later on in the night, of course, Jennifer, we know there's going to be another shot of some storms.
Yeah, and it's been very busy here across the Northeast. They've had days of thunderstorms, and not just your typical thunderstorms, even strong gusty winds outside of Boston. Here we are up into Dracut, Mass, just north of Lowell, and look at what the strong winds did to this tree here. Knocked it right over. Again, knocking out power to about 8,700 customers at one point last night. And again, more thunderstorms are expected as we go through this afternoon. And when Elsa moves in, we'll have another chance for rain with embedded thunderstorms. Elsa is going to be impacting the Northeast with some heavy rainfall, and a flash flood watch has been issued. We have it anywhere from the Chesapeake Bay, including the D.C. and Baltimore area, and Annapolis as well. And it goes right up 95, all the way up into parts of Maine. We have the threat for that heavy rainfall. As we are looking at significant rain, not just along the coast, but also interior sections. Look here across the Hudson Valley, some areas with the storm coming in and that front sending over you, you could see several inches of rainfall leading to some localized flooding. Want to talk about the winds as we see this storm system move northward, somewhat near the coast. It's going to kick up your winds here. So Norfolk, your winds are going to increase as we go through the afternoon, and tonight could gust to 30, maybe 45 miles an hour. And then we're going to see those strong winds just coming and pounding the shoreline of the Chesapeake all the way up into Maryland and across Jersey as well. So very windy weather here as we go through the afternoon and tonight. And again, overnight, those winds are really going to be strong across parts of the Northeast. Now, as we jump up into Long Island, here we are into New England. We're starting it in the afternoon. Again, your winds are going to start to pick up late tonight and early tomorrow morning. As you see that center of circulation cross through the Northeast, that wind gust around Montauk could be up to around 35 to 40 miles an hour, as well as here into Providence and across Cape Cod, we could still see those strong gusty winds. Now, the storm should be exiting as we move into late Friday, but we're still going to be dealing with, again, a lot of wild weather as it comes into the Northeast. So make sure that you are weather aware of what is going on as this system approaches you, because we have at least another day and a half to deal with it. Chris?
Jeff, for the Texas Gulf Coast, dealing again with more rain today after some life-threatening flooding yesterday. Storms triggering a flash flood emergency here in Rockport. Nearly 11 inches of rain soaked the area within the past 2 days. 7 inches of that rain fell yesterday. And that leaves some very saturated ground. And unfortunately, as we look at the rain still to come, there's a lot more still to come through Saturday. Some areas 5 to 8 inches. And again, there's always, when we talk about the moisture, in the Gulf, and we get tropical systems, or even if they're not tropical systems, tapping into a lot of this tropical moisture, we can end up getting a lot more than the official forecast. There's just a lot of things in the atmosphere we just can't account for. So that's just the reality here when dealing with some of this ridiculous amount of rain that we've seen and will continue to see. So here's the radar estimated rainfall in the past 2 days, the past 48 hours. From Brownsville to Corpus Christi, especially these coastal areas, seeing 5 to 8, and even there's a little bit of pink in here as well. And when you're dealing with some of these areas where there's water all around you and the water falls on the land, it can only drain so much. If you're at close to sea level, if it starts to pile up, it's a lot more difficult for that water to get out. So that's a big issue. The rain we've seen, and then the rain, of course, we're going to see makes a difference as well. And there's a lot of atmospheric moisture. I mean, just look at this. You're just about off the charts here in terms of just how much moisture is available throughout a deep layer of the atmosphere. So you take a lot of that and you send it up where it's a lot cooler, and you get the clouds and you get the rain. and it just keeps going. There's just so much moisture to tap into, and that's what we're going to be seeing. Quite a bit of thunderstorm activity right now south of Louisiana over the Gulf. We hope it stays that way. Unfortunately, you can kind of make out the trend of the radar heading up to the north. And here a little bit of a breather. Of course, breathers are going to be relative because there's still some showers around. And over the past 12 hours, it has been around Corpus Christi, especially to the south, where there's been the higher rainfall totals. So now here's the high resolution future radar. I'll give you a general idea of how things may be playing out over the next several hours here. And there's that slug of moisture that'll be moving into southern Louisiana that's currently over the Gulf. And then still from Corpus Christi up to Houston and Galveston, it's going to be more wet weather, of course. So we know in these locations, Jennifer, it can be a lot of rain in a hurry.
Yeah, it certainly could cause a whole lot of problems here as we are watching Elsa move up across the Carolina coast. And as we look here into the Raleigh area, it is just hitting you hard with extreme heavy rainfall. It takes it all the way up into southern Virginia as well. Now we go closer up into D.C. We do have one strong thunderstorm that's become severe, and it's just outside of D.C. here into Fairfax County. So again, Dale City over to Lake Ridge into Woodridge. You need to make sure that you're aware of this strong to severe storm with the capability of producing very strong winds, maybe up to 60 miles an hour that could quickly knock down some trees. So again, if you're around this area, get into some safe shelter. It looks like it's going to be moving northward right along 95, so we'll be tracking this.
We've never been so ready to get back out there. And with Copper Tone Sport,
around here, they say if you don't like the weather, just wait a minute.
I love to watch the waves after a storm. The storm can be long gone, but the waves just keep going.
Ask my history teacher where to go to college. He said, go where you like the weather. Best advice I've ever gotten.
Get into the out there. The Weather Channel.
Tracking Elsa on the Weather Channel. Jacksonville, now the site of the first U.S. death from Elsa. Here you can see the storm in action and what it has done also. It was a rain-wrapped tornado. It came dangerously close to homes, businesses, and drivers, of course, on the roadways. One person died from a falling tree during the storm yesterday. The National Weather Service, of course, out there surveying the damage. And with Elsa right now, that tornado threat does remain. The heavy rain threat is also with us, and beaches not looking good either. Of course, rip currents, a rough surf, and some strong winds in coastal areas will be part of what's to come with this 45-mile-per-hour tropical storm. Elsa is now, as it is full on, moving to the northeast, and it's heading into the northeast. The overall storm itself is moving at 20 miles an hour, but winds around it, of course, will be stronger than that. A gust possibly anywhere from 40 to 50 miles an hour. Can't rule that out. And some possible strengthening can happen with this later on tonight and during the day tomorrow. Some of the latest winds, close to 40 in Wilmington and Myrtle Beach, 37 in Myrtle, Wilmington, 39-mile-per-hour wind gust. And here in North Carolina, still seeing a lot of heavy rain. And fortunately, at least, Jennifer, for the time being, no tornado warnings to tell you about. So at least we have that going for us.
Yeah, a lot of heavy rain and a lot of wind, and that's kind of churning up the surf. Which is not such good news for all those folks that have the beach house this weekend or are down by the coast, because the rip currents are going to be a big concern. And it's not just near the center of Elsa, it's well away from it. Here we're looking at the big picture across the southeast. Look at these winds coming in from the south right up through the Gulf of Mexico. That is helping to increase the chances for rip currents, especially in the panhandle. We have it anywhere from Apalachicola all the way over towards Gulf Shores. So the coast of Alabama is also going to experience some concern for rip currents. Also here across parts of the southeast coast, we're concerned with those rip currents, a little bit up there in the high to the danger zone as those winds kind of come up in from the south again. So the rain may not be so heavy, or you may catch a break from the rain and you say, oh, I'm going to go out to the beach. Well, please make sure that you are not going out in that water. First, check to see which color flag there is, and if it's green, you're in good shape. If it's anything other than green, make sure that you at least got a lifeguard around you, because that is dangerous water out there when they get into the yellows and the reds. We are going to continue to see the increase for the waves as this just travels up the East Coast. So by tomorrow morning, it's going to be off the Jersey Shore, increasing your waves and out through Long Island, and then it's going to go right up towards the Gulf of Maine. So again, all across the East Coast, we're going to be experiencing the gusty winds and the higher waves. Chris?
And now we want to take a look at a couple of cities here to give you an idea of what to expect and when. This right here, a live look at Atlantic City, New Jersey. And it's hot, feeling tropical, and it's going to be even more so before you know it. Tropical storm warning is in effect, so tropical storm conditions are expected here with Tropical Storm Elsa that we're currently watching and tracking. As far as the timing goes, this is 8 o'clock this evening from Cape May up to Atlantic City. Before midnight, rain will arrive, but likely around midnight tonight, some of the worst weather will arrive and hang with us for at least several hours during the overnight while you're trying to catch some shut-eye period. And by morning, most of the heaviest rain should be out of here with a few lingering showers. And about those winds, coastal areas, of course, will have some of the strongest winds with Wildwood to Atlantic City, gusts to 35 miles an hour. That's what we're thinking. And then by, again, remember when we saw that deeper yellow and red coming through? Those are the bigger showers and storms, which will come with some bigger wind. 40 to 50 mile an hour winds can be expected during the overnight hours. And then in the morning, even when the winds turn offshore, still have the chance for seeing winds on the blustery side, about 15 to 20 miles an hour. So let's head up a little bit up the coast to New York City. And as we look at New York City, you are going to have to deal with the heavy rain threat. And so that means flash flooding is a concern, with the watch going into effect at midnight tonight. So how about the timing for New York? Going to see later on this afternoon and evening a few showers and storms ahead of what will be Elsa. And here's the morning when Elsa really starts to make its presence known, and then it should be out of here by lunchtime. So overnight hours for much of New Jersey, southern part of New Jersey. By the time Elsa gets up into New York, the sun will be up. And then eventually it'll be moving out. But then as a cold front approaches, still some showers and storms. Stay with us as we track it city by city here on the Weather Channel. Elsa, still a tropical storm.
Good boy.
Still tracking Elsa on the Weather Channel, and some other stuff as well that can be highly impactful, as we've already seen across Texas. Flash flood watches remain here for the summertime thunderstorms that are expected to develop and that have developed, that we're currently seeing right now from Brownsville to Galveston and a few counties inland. And then there's going to be thunderstorms today throughout parts of the Ohio River Valley and across parts of the Northeast and the East Coast, some of which is going to be associated with Elsa, some of it not. Eventually, much of the Northeast will have to deal with this, Elsa, which is currently going through North Carolina with winds still at 45 miles an hour, and it's possible, and it looks like, Jennifer, it's going to get even stronger before this storm gets all the way up into the Northeast tomorrow.
Yeah, it's going to be a busy time as we track this storm and as it moves across parts of the Carolinas, like what it's doing right now. We do have tropical storm warnings that have been issued for much of eastern North Carolina, even down towards the coast of South Carolina. Anywhere east of 95, there are tropical storm conditions, meaning those winds could gust very high, up to around 60 to even 70 miles an hour at times, and that could cause some damage. We are finding a lot of rainfall, especially from the capital all the way up to the state line, and then it just continues up towards Richmond and over in Norfolk. All this rain is going to be moving north. It kind of appears that this system is just traveling right along Interstate 95. As we look in a little bit closer up into the Raleigh, the Rocky Mount area, we have had a few isolated tornadoes try to develop within the past few hours. So there is the concern for some severe weather. Nothing right now, but we certainly want you to be aware that there are tornado watches in place that goes through 3 o'clock. Again, across parts of eastern North Carolina and taking you right through the Outer Banks. So even if you get a break in some of that heavy rain, there's still the possibility for some severe weather. In fact, as we put the radar into motion, we're going to find not just the rainfall, but the intense rain coming down that could really drop several inches of rain in a short amount of time. You can see it's moving up towards the Norfolk area as we go through this later part of tonight, right across the Delmarva Peninsula and continuing into Delaware. Very heavy rain coming into South Jersey as well overnight and into the early part of the morning. Again, we've talked about the rainfall amounts. They could be quite impressive and do a lot of damage. So a flash flood watch has been issued for you in Raleigh to Fayetteville over to Greensboro, and then it stretches all the way up into the north or northward up towards around Richmond. So again, heavy rain. Some areas could see several inches. And Chris, you know, everybody's worried about this, and they should be, but the rainfall inland, that's where some of the highest amounts could be.
Yeah, especially if you have any kind of terrain as well. You get a little bit extra lift out of that, which leads to a little bit extra rain, unfortunately. And that rain, likely a little bit more than you're going to want over what has already been a very busy week across the Northeast. Let's take a look at where this is going and when it's going to get there. So we can see that the center of the storm is going to go either right down the middle, somewhere in here, and even a third of the time, it goes on the outside. So it's, you know, pretty narrow cone. The forecasts have been getting better and better, and therefore the cones have been getting skinnier and skinnier. Also, the faster it moves, the skinnier the cone is going to be. So that's what we're looking at here for this evening. Eventually, it's going to get up to Richmond and Virginia Beach. Norfolk, you're going to be in some of the worst of the weather, because if the center's right here, some of the worst of the weather is going to look like this. And even if it was, say, right here, some of the worst of the weather is going to be like this. So it's going to be tough to avoid some nasty stuff there in parts of Virginia through eventually much of New Jersey, a lot of Delaware, almost all of it. And then eventually, as it cruises through tomorrow morning through the afternoon, we'll eventually see things briefly calm down, because after Elsa gets out of here, there's going to be some storms sweeping in behind it, not exactly related to Elsa. So it's going to be another busy day tomorrow, starting off first thing because of Elsa, and flooding does remain a huge concern out of this. Here's the high-resolution future radar, and you can see how this may be playing out overnight tonight as we see the main batch of rainfall happening overnight into the morning, with more showers and storms following it. Once the storm gets out of here by early Friday, more showers coming in late.
It's time to get going. It's time to get Dunkin' iced coffee brewed to make your day, because it's time to get you running.
This is the Weather Channel, and even without a tropical storm, it's been a rough week in the Northeast in terms of storms. This video showing a lot of lightning, consistent, nearly constant lightning streaking across the skies of New Jersey. This was on Tuesday night. Thunderstorms passing through the region in recent days have left thousands without power in addition to snarling roads with fallen tree limbs and other debris. Unfortunately, more storms are possible tonight. And guess what? Again, tomorrow night and tomorrow morning. And Elsa has a lot to do with tonight and tomorrow morning, depending on where you are in the Northeast. So let's take a look at what's happening right now in terms of where the rain is and where there are currently thunderstorms. And there is a severe thunderstorm warning and a flash flood warning here we'll get to in a moment, but a lot going on. So first, here's Elsa down here. And ahead of Elsa, you can see some of the thunderstorms. And then here's a little bit of a dip in the mid and upper levels, which ahead of it helps to create some showers and storms. And we'll see some behind it as well. In fact, as this meets up with Elsa, it may help give Elsa a little bit of a boost. And it is actually, the forecast is for it to get a little bit stronger tonight and tomorrow as it moves through the Northeast. So this is what we're looking at and what we're expecting. Likely because of this front, it's helping to keep the storm on the move out of here. So it's not going to go due north. It will stay on the northeasterly track here, and this is what that forecast looks like for Tropical Storm Elsa, as it's going to be going through Virginia for the rest of this evening, and then by the sundown and by midnight or so, working through the Delmarva and then through New Jersey. This is now the overnight hours, this stretch right here, taking us from this evening to tomorrow morning. And notice, from 45-mile-an-hour tropical storm to 50. And that's where it should stay, so that changeover happening somewhere in here, and it should stay that way as it zips out of here, because it'll be clipping along at a pretty fast rate here. So here's the time. Here's 3 o'clock in the morning, and you can kind of see where the center is likely, just kind of based on the way the future radar is displaying what the radar could look like tonight. And some pretty nasty storms already coming into Long Island and Connecticut. And still, now this is 8 o'clock in the morning, so about 5 hours later, still going to be seeing rain in central and northern New Jersey, still going to be having rain across parts of Long Island. So, especially in the morning, if you're heading into work to finish up the work week here, it's not looking good. Not looking like a good morning commute by any stretch of the imagination for much of the Northeast. And then now by 3, 4, 5 o'clock, Elsa's out of here. But look at that. Here comes some storms to finish things out with the next one, Jennifer. So, yeah, the Northeast having a hard time catching a little bit of a break, but it'll be a little bit of a breathing room here this weekend.
It's been so busy across the Northeast with very heavy rainfall and those strong storms that have moved through the past few days, really dumping a lot of rain. And there you can see that wind that was blowing things around here in upstate New York, or around New York, on Tuesday. Well, we're going to continue to watch out for strong winds overnight and heavy rainfall as we are looking at that storm, the Elsa, to be moving through late tonight and early tomorrow. So as it pushes up the northeast coast, is going to be impacting you with a lot of heavy rainfall, and flash flooding is a result of that. So we're likely to see the water really start to come up in many of the creeks and the rivers across this region. There is flash flood watches. They extend all the way from the state of Maine throughout New England down towards New Jersey and even over in the Chesapeake Bay. So again, flooding is likely as we see a tremendous amount of rain coming up from Elsa. And this is how much we think could come through. An additional 2 inches in some areas, but even some spots, inland regions, could get up to 3 inches of rain. Those are indicated by the yellow here. So again, significant rainfall. And as this system moves northward, those winds are going to increase as well. So tropical storm warnings have been issued for tonight across the Delmarva Peninsula, right up the Jersey Shore, over into Long Island, and even into parts of southern New England. Let's look at the winds. And as we see this system approach, winds will increase as they move in from the south and continue to kind of change direction, more of a northeast wind as this system kind of wraps up, or more of an east wind as this system wraps up and moves across the northeast as we head into middle of tomorrow. Chris?
I want to get back right now to the Northeast and check in on the active radar, because a lot of thunderstorms firing, some of them now severe. And right along the New Jersey and New York border, including parts of the Hudson River, just west of White Plains, New York, there is a severe thunderstorm warning that is in effect until 2:15. And the National Weather Service tagging this as a possible tornado as well. So we'll see if they change this yellow box to red here with this meat of the storm right there. This includes Clarkstown, Orangetown, and Spring Valley. And then here, just outside of Washington, D.C. and Alexandria, a severe thunderstorm warning, including parts of Fairfax and Prince William counties. And this storm is heading up from the south to the north with a decent amount of lightning associated with that. And then plenty of lightning across portions of Ohio right now. And we'll continue to track this down here, which is Elsa. Stay with us.
Hey, just...
New video into the Weather Channel right now. Power crews hard at work in Raleigh, North Carolina. Gusty winds from Elsa taking down some power lines across the city. The storm even toppling a transformer. Peak wind gusts right around 31 miles an hour. That was measured. At last check, 7,000 customers across North Carolina were without power. So some of these stronger winds with Tropical Storm Elsa will come with these bands and these heavier showers that we're seeing and we'll continue to see. So right now the heaviest rain is kind of clustered in here, but you see how these bands, the last couple of frames, are set up like that. When those kind of whip around, if they get stronger, those are what can bring some of the stronger winds to areas here in North Carolina and eventually into Virginia as this storm continues its trek to the northeast and up into the northeast. Here's Raleigh and Norfolk, and you can see the rain stretching from here to there with more scattered in nature showers. Still possibly heavy rain at times, but it's not going to be as long lasting as the rain we're seeing up here. But it can also be intense. So let's keep that in mind too going forward. Tropical Storm Elsa by this evening will be moving into Virginia and overnight tonight, making the transition from the mid-Atlantic into the northeast. And by late tomorrow afternoon, Elsa will be out of here, but not all of the bad weather. We got something coming in behind Elsa that could bring more thunderstorms to the northeast. And with everything to think about here, all that, so much of that 95 corridor and even into northern New England could see some of that heavy rain, heavy enough that flash flooding is certainly a possibility. Conditions are there for that. The high-resolution future radar gives you kind of an idea of how things may be playing out. This is now tomorrow morning, and the low somewhere in here with the rain just coming in. And not only does the rain, come in like this, it's not like a front where it just comes and goes and you get scattered showers. It comes in one way, and as the low moves, say from here to here, now these areas that are getting it early will get the backside of the rain. So it's just going to last that much longer. And there you see it. Rain coming down by the afternoon hours as the low moves on. And then eventually moving through Maine and into Canada late Friday by 8 o'clock. It's mostly out of the U.S. But look at this. Yeah, this won't be Elsa, but this will be what comes after Elsa. Some thunderstorm activity. Again, sound familiar? Delmarva up to New Jersey and New York, Connecticut, Massachusetts. So it's kind of going to be a 1-2 punch where one's going to last longer, but two could also be quite strong. In some cases, possibly even stronger, as we've seen the past couple of days with severe weather. So finally, Jennifer, by Saturday, a lot of the Northeast will get a break. So most of the weekend, maybe some showers return on Sunday. Most of the weekend looking okay.
It'd be nice to see some sunshine by Sunday for sure. Meanwhile, another rainy place has been across the coast of Texas. Here we're looking at Corpus Christi, where standing water in low-lying area has made it very difficult to drive around. Torrential rain has really been coming down across this part of Texas, and heavy rain, more of it, is in the forecast as we go through tomorrow. Oh yeah, here's a big rig trying to get through this as well. But that water has been really coming up. Now let's go to Galveston, where we have been seeing the rain on the increase. Rainfall has increased up to around 3 inches this past week, including a record-setting 2.4 inches coming down in just one day on Tuesday. Now the storms and the rain are expected to continue into the weekend, and a flash flood warning takes you right through tomorrow night. Let's have a look at the coast of Texas and the flash flood watch extending all the way from Galveston down towards Brownsville, and also inland areas can be expecting flash flooding. Again, as that rain moves in, it's just going to really hit you hard. And that is what we have seen just south of Corpus Christi, where the radar is estimated we've gotten almost 10 inches of rain south of Corpus, east of Kingsville. High amount of rain as it's been moving in from the Gulf of Mexico. South Padre Island all the way up towards Matagorda Bay has been experiencing a lot of rain. It's going to stay that way. As we look at the current radar, you see those showers still coming in from offshore as they're kind of pushing in to the coast and then also making their way even inland. And there's that heavier amount of rain just south of Louisiana, and that's moving northward as well. So here we go into the western Gulf of Mexico, and we're watching showers, embedded thunderstorms as well, with soaking rain coming through much of Texas as we go through the afternoon through tonight. Here we are at 10 o'clock this evening, and it's still going to be raining around Houston and down towards north of Corpus. We could still be seeing those showers as well. So rainfall in Texas and rain across the East Coast. Very busy here on the Weather Channel.
The tropical storm Elsa racing up the East Coast after lashing parts of South Carolina early this morning with gusty winds and heavy rain. Elsa now moving into North Carolina. Heavy rain already spreading from the Outer Banks to well inland.
And across the Carolinas, Elsa, but the Carolinas are not going to be the last stop for Elsa. By tonight, the storm is going to work its way up into the Northeast, bringing with it the heavy rain and those strong tropical storm force winds. Now, much of the area has already had a lot of strong thunderstorms from the past several days.
The good news, though, Elsa will be moving very quickly, and it will be out of here, at least out of the Northeast, by this weekend. However, between now and then, there's still a lot to get through. So let's get straight to where Elsa is right now. I'm meteorologist Chris Warren, as we are all here at the Weather Channel tracking Elsa and what's going on with Elsa and around Elsa. A lot happening with this, and this storm is bringing more than just rain and wind. It's also bringing the threat of tornadoes and some very rough surf as well. So the effects of some of the wind and the spin associated with this storm leading to some complications here. 45-mile-per-hour tropical storm right now. It's moving to the northeast at 20 miles an hour. So it is clipping along through North Carolina. Next stop, or next pass through, will be Virginia through Maryland, and then Delaware, New Jersey, and up to New England. And a lot of heavy rain around Raleigh, especially to the north. A little bit of thunderstorm activity as we watch this little batch approaching Norfolk and Virginia Beach. And the Outer Banks also going to be a bit on the stormy side. There is that tornado threat with this tropical system, like we've seen the past couple of days as it was making landfall and then moving inland, bringing that threat for more tornadoes across the mid-Atlantic, and then more severe weather possibly in the Northeast as well. Here's Raleigh, and this yellow, orange, and red is where some of the heaviest rain is coming down at the moment. All that we see right here that is blue and pink is where some of the stronger winds are. The pink colors being the stronger winds. Wilmington now winds gusting up to 40 miles an hour. It was around 39 last check, so still a bit gusty. And Outer Banks winds picking up as well, and Myrtle Beach 26-mile-per-hour wind gust. Here's that tornado threat. Anything shaded in red here, you're under a tornado watch. So several counties here. This doesn't include Raleigh, but it's just east of Raleigh. We're talking, all over much of eastern North Carolina. So there's Greenville in there, New Bern, to Morehead City, up to the Outer Banks, so Kill Devil Hills, of course, and Hatteras, Norfolk, Virginia Beach, and Richmond in the D.C. area. Not quite to the D.C. area, but just outside of the D.C. area. What is going into the D.C. area right now are some thunderstorms. So that's what we're dealing with right now, and that's what we are seeing with this. And you can see the area of low pressure spinning around quite a bit of heavy rain and thunderstorms. We have the 2 o'clock update here. Still 45 mile per hour tropical storm, and still moving to the northeast at 20 miles an hour. So oftentimes we would expect this to be weakening as it goes across the land here. However, it's going to be a little complicated the next day or so because it may actually get stronger, and that has to do a little bit with what's going on above. I'll talk about that coming up a bit, but let's talk about what this storm has already done to parts of the Carolinas, including South Carolina. That's where we find the Weather Channel's Jackie Jarris. She found this report from Myrtle Beach.
The worst of the conditions from Tropical Storm Elsa now over in Myrtle Beach, but still gusty conditions through the rest of the afternoon. It was a wild ride this morning where we had wind gusts up to 54 miles per hour, more than an inch of rainfall, and even a tornado warning. But very quickly, they're trying to get back to business here in Myrtle Beach. Of course, tourism, huge part of the economy here. We've got thousands of people from other parts of the country trying to enjoy their beach vacation. Now, one of the problems is we've got double red flags that are flying, indicating that the waters are closed. So as conditions continue to improve here, it will be a nice day to get outside with breaks in the cloud cover, but the danger is going to be remaining in the water out here. We've still got a high risk of rip currents and very rough surf. So you can get out here and enjoy the beach, walk along the beach, have a good time with your family, just don't get into the water. And that's going to be the case now, we think, for the next 2 days, at least through your Friday.
Well, 2 perspectives of the situation here in Charleston, South Carolina. Officially, Elsa brought 3.67 inches of rain in the city, but outside of the city, we had significantly higher totals, and the result was quite predictable for a city that is so prone to flooding. Police having to close several streets right before dawn, but now they have since reopened. And heavy rain and brisk winds along the Virginia coast near Hampton Roads as Elsa is surging northward. Those wind speeds are going to pick up and get even a little bit stronger as we go through the next few hours. There's even the possibility that a tornado could develop, with the region under a flash flood watch until tomorrow morning. So let's look again at the tropical storm warnings out for the Outer Banks and across much of eastern North Carolina. This includes Wilmington, and it also includes parts of Myrtle Beach and throughout the coastal areas of not upstate South Carolina, but right along the coast here in South Carolina, we can be still expecting those strong gusty winds. I did check in on Wilmington, gusting now to almost 25 miles per hour. Thunderstorm threat is going to be with us for the Outer Banks, for much of the Norfolk area, southern and eastern parts of Virginia, and right up into parts of the Northeast as this system continues to work its way northward. And there's a look at the rain that has really been coming down hard over Raleigh for the past few hours as it's trying to push up 85 and move over into southern portions of Virginia. But we're also seeing these kind of showers and thunderstorms kind of wrapping around that center. So again, isolated thunderstorms, isolated tornadoes can be anticipated here as we go through the afternoon, as we will see more of this right through the later part of the day. And as it moves northward, it's going to continue for you across Virginia into the Delmarva Peninsula through the overnight hours and kind of just push up the Jersey Shore by early tomorrow morning. We are concerned with too much rain producing some flash flooding, and this is inland over towards Raleigh and over near Greensboro and up into parts of Virginia. Flash flood watches have been issued. Flooding is a big concern here. And rip currents are also a big threat for the Outer Banks and right down even to the coast of South Carolina and parts of Georgia. So again, even though the weather may give you a break and you're thinking, I can go out there and go into the ocean, watch out. Rip currents are going to be a big concern for us right through the afternoon. Chris?
Yeah, there's a little bit of a lag time before things calm down in the ocean. Things are going to get going again here across parts of the Northeast, as that'll be the next location. Elsa will be heading after the Mid-Atlantic, so New York City and Long Island. You're going to start to feel the effects of Elsa late tonight and or early in the morning. The winds are going to be picking up speed throughout the rest of today and during the overnight hours. Heavy rain could also lead to at least the possibility of flash flooding as well. And that goes for much of the Northeast. Even parts of Vermont, New Hampshire, up to Maine could see some flooding, with a lot of this moisture getting up into some pretty far northern locations. So here's the path. Somewhere in this red shaded area or just outside of it will be the center of the storm, but wrapping around it. So, you know, you're not in good shape if you live right here or if you live right here. You know, in or out of the cone doesn't really matter, because that's where the center of the storm will go. Somewhere within or just outside of it, regardless, there's going to be some big impacts with this. So just imagine wherever the center is, you've got a big blob coming with it. And that's what we're talking about with that rain and the heavy rain threat going all the way up into Vermont. And the winds, though, the wind component, we talk about tropical storms. It's a tropical storm because of its winds. And that's the threat here. The winds and, of course, also the rain will be coming with this. But it's going to be the coastal areas. There's not very much friction, you know, next to zero going over the water. So the winds are much stronger closer to the waters as opposed to being inland and farther away from the area of low pressure. What's steering this and what has been for a big portion of Elsa's cycle here since the beginning has been this high. It really pushed it through the Caribbean, and then it found that little turn up around once it got through Cuba. And now, as it's been moving up here, it's going to interact a little bit with what's going on higher up in the atmosphere. And some of that could give it a little bit extra oomph and help it strengthen a little bit. But also, it ensures that the storm is going to be heading out of here, heading away from the United States eventually. So not heading too far north. You have a cold front that's going to be moving slowly to the east, and notice it's a little bit behind. So we're talking the surface, a little bit behind where Elsa is. Now, it will, by tomorrow, going into tomorrow, it will, if Elsa lingers, it'll help kick it out of here. But it will also bring an extra round of showers and thunderstorms once Elsa moves on. So here's the upper level winds that are dipping to the south, and that will also help give a little bit extra oomph to the storm and or create some showers and storms after Elsa moves on as it kicks out of here. So here's the heaviest rain at 3 o'clock in the morning. You can see how by 7 it's going to be in New York, Connecticut, Rhode Island, Boston, continuing into the early afternoon. And then, Jennifer, there goes the showers and storms at more of a typical time when we would expect it and have seen it in the late afternoon, evening hours, and early nighttime. It's really been a rough week for parts of the Northeast with so many showers and thunderstorms, and now Elsa moving in. This is how things looked on a Thursday, rather early Thursday, as the thunderstorms were moving through parts of Massachusetts. This is just outside of Boston, up into Dracut. We had strong winds, knocked down some trees, knocked down some power lines. Even 8,700 customers are at one point last night were without power as the strong thunderstorms moved through. And now we're having to deal with Elsa coming up from the south. So very busy here across the Northeast, and concerned just not for the strong winds, but too much rain producing some flash flooding. So flooding is a possibility across New England and all the way down towards Long Island and parts of upstate New York. As we are concerned with the flooding, there's flash flood watches going out. So you know those roads around your town that always flood. Well, you may want to avoid those for at least the next 2 days because of the high water that's going to be coming your way. And how much water do we think we could add up here? Some areas could see up to 3 inches of rain. 3 inches on top of what you've already had from the past few days. So again, that could certainly lead to some significant flooding. Now let's look at the winds. As this system moves up, we will see those winds kind of push up from the south. But as the winds wrap around that low and they really start to intensify, we see those wind speeds getting stronger around Norfolk, through the Delmarva, up around Ocean City,
This is around 11 o'clock tonight, where wind gusts could be up to 60 miles an hour. And then they move closer up into New England as we head into overnight and early tomorrow. So strong winds are going to be on the increase here across the Northeast. As we look at those winds moving in from the south, out here around Long Island, we see those wind gusts up to around 25 to 30 miles per hour overnight, and they're just going to continue to stay very strong through the overnight hours. So maybe one of those nights that's so tough to sleep. If you're like me and a light sleeper and you just hear the winds kind of rattling things around out there, well, again, it's going to be a very long night and a long morning, as those winds are going to be so strong with the approaching Elsa coming up into the Northeast. Chris?
Sometimes it rains so hard, it's hard to keep some sleep, right? I mean, we've seen that, too much of it in Texas. While on the Gulf Coast, been dealing with rain today, and this coming after what we saw yesterday as life-threatening flooding. Storms triggering a flash flood emergency in Rockport. Nearly 11 inches of rain soaked the area within the past 2 days, and 7 out of that 11 fell yesterday. So that's the scene you get there after that kind of rain. Unfortunately, we can't say completely done yet because more rain is expected. Here's the rain still to come between Houston and Corpus Christi, somewhere in there, 3 to 5 inches, possibly more. Can't rule out even up to 8 inches of rain. So with that on top of some saturated ground, flash flood watches posted from the Mexico border all the way up to Galveston and some of the Houston, the southwest Houston suburbs. A lot of moisture, almost off the charts here, at least off of our scale. When you see not much dry air, a little bit, but the dry air going to the moist and the orange and the red, and we've got some purple colors on there. That is some deep tropical moisture. A lot of juice to be rained out. And that rain is falling right now, heaviest over the Gulf. But that's going to change. This rain will be moving north into Louisiana, and we should see more rain moving into Texas. Over the past 12 hours, it's been around Corpus Christi, especially to the south, where we've had some of the heaviest rainfall. And next couple of hours, some of the heavier rain moving in to say from about Lake Charles, eastward and around Houston and Galveston. That'll continue through tonight. And it just goes even into the morning hours, the early morning hours, Jennifer. Texas not getting much of a break either.
Yeah, it's been so busy across much of the Gulf Coast. And let's have a look again at where the heaviest rain has been coming down in those stronger thunderstorms. Very busy or starting to become more active here across the Northeast. We're just north of New York City, and we see several areas underneath the severe thunderstorm warning. So if you live up into Patterson, New Jersey, you need to make sure you're into system-safe shelter right now, as well as up into western Connecticut. There we are looking at a strong thunderstorm right over Danbury. And again, a severe thunderstorm warning, even possibly a tornado coming down from this. So again, make sure you're not outside, you're in somewhere safe. And this is going to go on all night long as severe thunderstorms are going to be developing here and a severe thunderstorm watch is in place for New York and the tri-state area.
Domino's is testing dry.
Evacuate immediately.
Oh no! Go, go! Oh. I'm on!
A new video into the Weather Channel right now. Security cameras capturing the moment a tornado blew through Jacksonville, Florida yesterday. And wow, you can see some of the damage. The swirl is what I meant. The damage is obvious, but seeing that swirl, wow, that's something else. We understand that one person did die from a falling tree during the storm yesterday. The National Weather Service is out surveying this. We look at this as it's happening. And with the National Weather Service, you know, if you don't have video, we do have video right here. You see a swirl. We still have to go out and based on what was damaged, the type of construction that was damaged, and knowing what kind of winds it takes to do that damage, that helps the National Weather Service. That's how they get a rating, because you don't, when you hear about the winds from a tornado, they're not measured usually. They usually destroy the equipment. So they estimate the wind speed when it gets its rating. And also you have to make sure it was a tornado first, and the damaged path, the way stuff falls and is left over, helps determine what came through, whether it was straight line winds or a tornado. Certainly saw some swirling there. There's, you know, more reasons why the wind will swirl other than a tornado. But in this case, of course, some significant damage there as we saw. But we are still looking at the possibility for tornadoes with this, with Tropical Storm Elsa, as it is moving through North Carolina right now at a pretty decent clip at 20 miles an hour. Some heavy rain at times closer to the center. The bands aren't as impressive, but they haven't given up yet. Still some very heavy rain working through the Outer Banks, about to get up to Virginia Beach here and getting very close to Norfolk in there, then eventually, and we're starting to see it actually getting into the Delmarva. And anywhere up in this area here, kind of north, northeast, and east, is where there's more of a likelihood of tornadoes, again, with this and through this evening. Some of the winds have been strongest around Wilmington. Again, that's not even closest to the center. However, it is over the water, and over the water, the winds aren't going to slow down because of buildings and trees and mountains. The wind just goes unfettered across the ocean, and you end up getting some of the stronger winds right at the beaches. And that happens even on a good day, but with the tropical system, all the more so. And these winds and the threat for more tornadoes and heavy rain, we know, Jennifer, will be moving through the mid-Atlantic and then up into the Northeast.
Yeah, it's going to be a long afternoon, a long evening, and even tomorrow we're still going to be busy as we track Elsa as it moves up into the Northeast. Looking at the big picture, we see the storm moving through Raleigh right now. Farther back towards the west into the south, we have a few showers and thunderstorms moving across the Ohio Valley, and even some scattered showers developing across the southeast. So very busy here across the eastern half of the country today. And with the wind coming in from a certain direction, we have concern for more rip currents and a moderate risk right through the panhandle of Florida and also the coast of Alabama. Keep that in mind. It's a great day, I'm sure, to be out there soaking up some sun or just relaxing. But if those flags are not encouraging you to get out there, don't. Make sure that you are very mindful of the water. And here across the Carolinas, again, high risk for rip currents today as we are so close to that center of Elsa as it moves into the Carolinas. So when we talk about rip currents, we always talk about flags that are flying at the beach. A green is always good. A yellow's maybe like, oh, I don't think I will. Maybe only if a lifeguard's near me. And when they even get into the red, whether it be a single or a double, make sure that you are nowhere near that water because it's very dangerous out there. And as far as the amount of waves that we will see, and we'll continue to watch them kind of increase from the south as we see that center of circulation move right up the coast and increases your waves and your wind throughout tonight and tomorrow. Chris?
Jennifer, eventually Delaware and Maryland beaches are going to be getting even worse. A bit cloudy at the moment here and warm. Still feels like beach weather, but these waves in the water will be likely not real safe to be in, especially if the rain comes with thunderstorms, and lightning, of course, is extra dangerous when you're out there wide open at the beaches. So here's the high-resolution future radar. Here's the timing. And here's Ocean City, Maryland, up to Rehoboth Beach there in Delaware. And as the afternoon turns into evening, more and more rain, and possibly coming as thunderstorms later on, even before sunset tonight. Then after sunset before midnight is when some of the heaviest of the heavy rain rolls in. It'll be with us even a few hours, possibly after midnight here, before it moves on. And it should be out of here by about or just after daybreak here, maybe even before daybreak. As far as the winds go, a consistent 25 to 30 mile an hour winds, especially at the beaches. And then picking up in some areas up to 40. Wouldn't rule out a 50 to 60 mile an hour wind gust reading in Ocean City. So things really going to be picking up here across parts of Maryland, Delaware, and eventually New Jersey and beyond. A lot of rain, a lot of flooding, and not just with Elsa, also here in Texas. Flash flood watch remains in effect here with more summer thunderstorms tapping into a lot of this tropical moisture over the Gulf from Brownsville up to Galveston and areas inland. And then in the Northeast, severe weather threat we're tracking not only today, but also again tomorrow. And in between, Elsa. And Elsa itself could bring some severe weather to the Northeast. Here's some of that severe weather that's happening right now across portions of New Jersey and New York at the moment. Severe thunderstorm warning east of Allentown, around Patterson, north of New York, and also in Connecticut, north of Bridgeport. And then here's this next tropical troublemaker, Elsa, as it's in North Carolina right now, eventually going to make it through the rest of the mid-Atlantic and into the Northeast, and then moving out. And then a little bit of a break we get to talk about here. Yeah, we just got to keep waiting for that break. Keep looking forward to the end of the weekend when we get some drier air to move into the Northeast. But until then, we're going to continue to watch for that rain and watch for the tropical system. As that tropical storm is moving up the coast, a tropical storm warning has been issued for much of the Outer Banks, in fact, all the way up towards the coast of New England. And there you see the center of circulation just to the southwest of Raleigh. It's going to be moving over the capital, but the city of Raleigh and areas to the north have been hit very hard with a lot of rain the past few hours. And all that rain is continuing to work its way up towards Richmond and go through the Hampton Roads area, the Norfolk region, and bring with it not just heavy rain, but the potential for severe storms. Could even find some tornadoes embedded in this. So a tornado watch has been issued as this storm passes through. It extends all the way up to Salisbury and over into parts of Virginia. So the Delmarva looking at the threat for severe weather right through the afternoon and up until around 11 o'clock. That watch goes until. Let's help time it out for you. And again, scattered showers into South Carolina. Heaviest rain through the Outer Banks and across eastern North Carolina. And then the center of circulation moves up into Virginia later on this afternoon and continues overnight to work its way up the East Coast, bringing with it the rainfall that could be very intense and heavy at times. Some areas could even see some flash flooding, and a flood watch has been issued for parts of the Northeast and even down towards the inland areas over Raleigh. We just saw from that radar how much rain has just been coming down, and we're going to be seeing about another inch or two across parts of North Carolina, but the rain is going to stay very heavy through the afternoon. An additional 2 to 3 inches can be expected right up into much of Virginia and again out over the Chesapeake. Chris, it's going to be very hard to avoid all this rain as we're just not going to get a break in the Northeast. No, we're not. And after Elsa comes through, there's going to be even the chance for more thunderstorms that are going to come through. So let's take a look at what's going on right now with this and what we're expecting and what we're seeing. So Tropical Storm Elsa over North Carolina by this evening, Virginia, and then through the Delmarva in New Jersey late tonight and during the overnight / early morning hours tomorrow, and then through New England on Friday. So by tomorrow afternoon, really. And by the evening hours, it's going to be up and past Bar Harbor, Maine. And notice, though, 50 mile per hour tropical storm, 45 now and expected this evening. So it's going to strengthen a bit. And as it does, it's also going to help bring more rain into the region, which, of course, with the rain we've seen lately, with the thunderstorms and some of the damage and the debris out there, just making matters more of a mess. The high-resolution future radar here by 3 o'clock tonight, overnight tonight at 3 o'clock in the morning, the area of low pressure over somewhere over Delaware or southern New Jersey, and then getting through northern New Jersey first thing in the morning, and then New England from then on. So the early to mid-morning, then by early afternoon, we're going to be watching it leave Connecticut, but still Massachusetts, Vermont, Rhode Island, Rhode Island even a little bit, but New Hampshire, and then through the evening hours in Maine. But then thunderstorms coming right behind it. And here's the rain that's still to come. Again, quite a bit of rain expected across parts of New York and Connecticut. So just a big heads up, it is going to be a nasty, nasty morning commute tomorrow for some of the big cities along the 95 corridor. Stay tuned to the Weather Channel.